I'm in the car. I'll be in the house in a few minutes, everyone.
Okay, I have to start this over. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Give me a second here.
Good
I'm
morning.
trying to go live stream. Where are we? Here we go. Now is now allowing us now you don't have permission. It had came up, now it's giving me an error. Of course we do. This is ridiculous. Maybe I have to stop and then share again because it was on the live stream and I didn't start it because there it goes. This is Zoom. Ridiculous. Now it's telling me you don't have permission. Again, they don't have permission for CPAC. I don't know. I'm just so tired of this.
Crazy. Everything was fixed, no?
Yep.
Very
It's not. I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. It was fixed. It worked last time. And it's an error. Let me see what's going on with we don't even have quorum anyway, right? So I am going to see I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to try for myself what's going on.
Good morning, everyone. We're just having some technical issues that my co-chair Shelley's trying to just get up and running. So if you can
Is Jimmy here?
She is.
Jimmy, try the live stream. The permissions are set, so I know that we had an update. At least my computer had an update for Zoom. So but on the CPAC end, it's good to go. I mean, according to YouTube, it should be fine.
They haven't started. They haven't problems.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll just continue with I just saw somebody here that I wanted to ask. So as you're waiting, please put your district in front of your name. If you're New York City Public Schools, just please put New York City Public Schools, please. I think we have quorum. Maybe. Yeah, we have quorum. I'm just going to start, but Jimmy, can you try to live stream? It's not letting me live stream. It has the same error as before. And it has the same error as before. It won't let me. Unless DOE put restrictions. I know the external, you can't Zoom. I don't, you can't live stream. Maybe they put it on. Well, this is Jimmy's thing, so I don't know what's happening here. So it's giving the same error. So it could be Zoom because everything is good on the end. So I don't know. I'm gonna check the settings. Everybody see if I'm gonna do one more thing, and otherwise we're gonna start. No. All right, so everything is correct in the settings, so I can't I don't know why we're going to start. You already started the recording, correct, Randy?
Yes, it's recording.
All right, so we're starting. Maybe I'll try intermittently again in between, see if it will allow us to live stream. So you see my slides, right? So good morning, everyone. Happy spring. Today is our general monthly calendar meeting. It's April 11th. It's our board. Wow. Okay, meeting rules and procedures. You should have received those and your bylaws and our bylaws. So again, I think the most important fact is please raise your hands before calling out. So people don't speak over each other. Wait till you're recognized before speaking. Remember, it's 2 minutes or less, whether it's a comment or questions. We're not going to follow up. I'm going to ask people not to write on the screen, please. Just wait to be recognized, be respectful. I don't think we don't have issues about that again. And no be present, no side conversations. That includes the chat as well. So I'm going to ask that person, whoever swiped, to clear the X off the screen. Thank you, please. So we're going to do roll call. Please place your district or your borough president's council in front of your name. And we're going to conduct roll call. District 21.
Present.
All right, good morning, Randy. District 22.
I'm here.
What's your name for the record?
Sorry, Michelle Robinson.
Thank you, Michelle. District 23. District 23. In the meanwhile, we still need to fill out the attendance form. That is our records keeping as well. Thank you. District 24. Do we have 24 in the house? All right. District 25.
Present.
Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning, Shirley.
Good morning. Yeah, in this round, especially if I don't know your name, just state it for everybody else so we could get familiar with each other. District 26. Anybody sees Adriana Villas, 26, or is she here? Okay, Randy's shaking her head. No. District 27. All right, District 28. They had their elections, so they're not excused anymore. They had filled their vacancy. Anybody see District 28 or Isaac? No, okay. District 29,
President Joanne Cummings, District 29.
thank you. Good morning, Joanne. District 30, District 30, you see Becca? Nope. District 11,
30, she said she was on the train, so her signal's going in and out, but Becca was here.
okay, thank you. District 11. There's 2 people in the waiting room. District 11. All right. District 12, District 12. All right, District 13. District 13, all right. District 14. District 15. All right, I see District 16 PA. Can you say your name and type it in the chat so we can rename you, please?
Sorry, Dwayne
dis-
Brooks Mims.
Okay, yes, I'm gonna ask you to type it in the chat, and between me and Randy, we will, and Jimmy will correct your name. Thank you. District 17. District 17. All right, District 18. District 19. District 20.
Good morning, Josephine here.
Good morning, Josephine. Thanks for coming. District 75. You see Veronica, not Clark, she's 17. 75 is Veronica as well. Do you see D75? Nope. All right. District 31. I saw Melissa.
Good morning, Melissa Parody, District 31.
Thank you. District 32. All right. No 32. Jazzy's not here. Okay. Bronx High Schools. Bronx High Schools. No Rima. Right. Brooklyn High Schools. Okay. Manhattan High Schools. I think I saw Rosa.
Good morning, Rosalie is here.
Thank you. Queens High Schools, myself, Shirley Aubin. Staten Island.
Good morning, Pamela here.
Good morning, Pamela. I know Staten Island was the first 2 to be present. District 1. District 1. All right. District 2.
Good morning, Melissa Valdez, District 2.
Good morning. District 3.
Here.
Good morning, Jimmy. You could just let everybody know who you are.
VP1. VP second VP for CPAC.
No, your name.
Oh, Jimmy Brown.
Thank you. District 4.
Peace and blessings. Rashida Brown Harris here, District 4. Good morning.
Good morning. District 5.
Good morning, Aisha Urban here, District 5.
Awesome. Thank you. District 6.
Good morning, everybody. Caroline Jose here and present.
All right, Caroline. Thank you. District 7. District 7. Well, Randy, I lost your face, so I guess you put your camera on or people moved you up. District 8.
Good morning, Erica Newsom Rodriguez, District 8.
Thank you. District 9. Good morning, Erica.
No.
District 9. All right. District 10. Okay, doke. I don't know. Somebody accidentally wrote on the screen and I can't take it off. So
I think that was
Um,
me. And I was trying to figure out how I did it for one. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know how to
no,
do it.
maybe it'll come off when I stop sharing. For now, I just can't figure out right now to take that off. Okay, so everybody is here now. Well, not everybody's here. Last month, I think we all, New York City Public Schools and our individual schools, our districts, our boroughs, had celebrated Women's History Month, and our schools did various and multiple things. Kudos. Again, it's always for us to celebrate ourselves, right? So, and support each other. March Madness still continues into April, because we do have elections. And today's agenda is we're going to handle our business. We have our updates from Dr. Melendez, Office of Pupil Transportation. We're going to talk about the OPT app, which some of us did already attend that meeting. So DIIT, which is Division of Instructional Information Technology, cannot be here. They will be slotted for next month. And in their slot, New York City Health from the department is going to, and New York City Public Schools is going to give COVID-19 guidelines updates. They're going to take their slot. Then we'll have a presentation for fair student funding. Then we hear from a chancellor and his cabinet team. Instead of the COVID-19, we'll do a refresher on nominations and elections. And then our awesome face liaison is going to go over overview of complaints, grievances, and investigations. So let's go right into it. We're going to go right into the minutes. Here goes February minutes. Please take a chance to, if you haven't done so, review the minutes. Now, we have 2 sets, February and March. And again, for everyone who's in attendance and haven't done so at this time, please fill out the attendance form. Thank you. Can somebody tell me who's Jay Benson 3? Can you just type who you are in the chat, please? And Laquana Chambers. All right, great. OPT. So those are February minutes. Anyone has any questions or concerns or corrections to make? If not, can someone put in a motion to adopt our February 8th minutes? Manhattan High Schools?
Yes, motion to adopt February and March minutes.
I
No, just
second.
February. Okay.
Just
So hold on. So this is just February, not March. Manhattan High School.
apologies.
Okay. And I'm gonna Jimmy, and then I know someone else says I second. You can like make the motion for March if you agree. All right. We're gonna go into March minutes at this time, March 14 minutes. They're on the screen. Again, they were also set ahead of time. So for those are coming late, who came late, Zoom is not working. I'm not Zoom, obviously we're on Zoom. The live stream, Zoom is not allowing us to live stream and all the settings. So I don't know. All the settings are correct. It works. I think is the nominations and elections part is a jinx. They don't want us sharing that of live stream. I think that's what's going on here. But I'm getting an error message, and I tried a few times and I tried again. It's not allowing us to live stream. So apologies. Oh, apologies. I'm muted. I'm not supposed to get this by now. So the person who was second the motion before, would you
I
like to make a
motion that
motion?
we adopt. I motion that we. I'm sorry.
Jimmy, give me a sec. Motion. The person who was seconding February's, would you like to make the motion for this for March 14th minutes?
Motion to accept March 14th minutes as written, District 8.
District 8, gracias. Who would like to second that motion?
District 31, second.
All right, thank you, District 31. We're just gonna jump right in it. So our committees, there's some changes. We told it last night, so a lot of our committees are going quarterly. So the next time the capacity building and support committee is going to meet, it's going to meet still on the first Tuesday of the month, but it'll be June 4th. Quarterly meetings for communication, still first Tuesday of the month, but quarterly, June 4th. High school committee is still monthly. We had the meeting on April 2nd. The legislative committee is going to have their meeting on April 30th. Multilingual language learners is quarterly. The next one is in May. The date we haven't nailed down yet. Special education is, we have a new chair for special education. It's going to be Adriana Aviles, Adriana Alicia. She is our recording secretary at this time. And for the month of April, we're going to have 2 meetings, and then it will be consistent dates. But for this month, it's going to be April 18th at 6 p.m. Then it's April 25th at 10 a.m. Title I is going quarterly as well. First Tuesday of the month. The next time is going to be June 4th. The Wellness Committee is going to have their meeting the next one is May 8th. It's the second Wednesdays of the month. Yesterday was a holiday. They elected to just skip the month, and the next meeting will be May 8th. The alumni meeting is our quarterly. The next one is June 11th at 10:30 a.m. So updates, working group A655. Still waiting for the next steps with legal on that. So before I could go to the PEP to see if the draft, but the work of revision is done. The citywide comprehensive education plan template and I-plan meeting working group. The last time we met was March 28th. We gave receivership updates, overview of language and allocation policy. We did an overview of next year's CEP and the process, DCEP feedback, and not feedback on proposed template, which is not going to change too much as well. Next steps, meeting cadence, and moving forward. Now we're going to hear from our face liaisons. I didn't see Dr. Melendez, who's the education director, but I did see Deputy Education Director Jesse Mojica, and we'll hear from our face liaison, Anthony Settles, a little later. Oh, I see Christina is jumping on right now. But I'm going to take this time to stop sharing so I can see your faces better. So I don't know if you want to start or we're going to just wait for Christina, because I know I think she's already got volume and she's all ready to go. So you have the floor, Dr. Melendez, and y'all do your thing.
Thank you so much. Good morning, CPAC. It is always great to be here and to be in community with all of you, even though virtually. I wanted to start by saying, as per usual, thank you all for just doing the work that you do every day at your schools and in your school communities. I know it's a lot. I know you volunteer your time and you have your own children and things to worry about, and you choose every day to do more and take care of all the children in your spaces, and I am grateful for that. So thank you. I want to say that We have a couple of really fun things happening in the spring. It's getting warmer, even though the weather and the rain is not showing up today for us, but it's getting warmer. And with that, are a lot of activities and events coming from FACE or hosted by FACE around New York City Reads in a community near you. And so we are having big book parties in in different boroughs throughout, and we'll be sharing that information shortly. But every borough is going to have a big book party, and we are excited. In those events, we give out about 2,000 books with our partners at Bodega Books and others. Also, some communities are going to be seeing a lot of spaces with hubs in their in local businesses that folks and families have identified for us. We have culminated our first cohort and are closing out some other cohorts of New York City Family Ambassadors. I know that some of the members of this, your executive board actually have been part of those 10-week trainings. And so I applaud all of the family and parent leaders that have come through and persisted 10 weeks and have learned a lot about the science of reading and are really excited. Adriana is putting out a little cheer, are really excited to start doing the work in their communities and share that information with others. So that's something to look forward to with your leaders. Jesse, am I missing something?
I think the other items, Christina, are just upcoming professional developments that we have for our parent leaders. So we have a few monthly PDs that are coming up. April 15th, we're having a monthly PD session. Topic is on bias awareness, and that is on April 15th for our CCECs, as well as parliamentary procedure training on April 18th. Also want to just take a moment, since April is Autism Awareness Month, to really kind of recognize for a moment all those with autism and their families. FACE is partnering with Teatro Sea, a theater that we have partnered with before on a variety of different initiatives, to do a special showing for our District 75 students. That is very, like, for those who are aware of the sensory-friendly performances that happen on Broadway, we're kind of mirroring that for our District 75 students and having a special performance for them through Teatro Sea on April 19th, dedicated to our District 75 students and in honor of Autism Awareness Month. Also want to say that we also have our upcoming town halls with the Chancellor. And next one will be in District 2 on May 2nd, District 11 on May 6th, and also with the Citywide Council in District 75 on May 1st, and in District 23 on May 30th. We continue to have our PC experiences throughout with our cultural institutions. We've had them with the New York Aquarium, with the Jackie Robinson Museum, recently at Brooklyn Bridge Park. And we are also continuing to work with having meeting with our city agencies and having a variety of different meetings with them where we focus on one specific city agency. In the past, we've had Parks, Department of Youth Community Development, Department of Transportation, ACS, all present amongst the city agencies, and we'll continue to have those as we move through the rest of the calendar year. And I believe, Christina, that's all that I think we covered everything, unless I missed something, Christina.
No, I think, and then there, just one last thing, the Museum of Natural History has reached out and asked for some specific school districts. They want to make sure that they're getting to all parts of the city, and they have a program that starts for 7th graders, so rising 7th graders, so our current 6th graders, that we have managed to extend their deadline so that we can support them in recruiting students that are from other parts of the city that are committed to showing up to the museum for Saturday classes. It's a wonderful program and a wonderful opportunity as I hear it. Of course, I'm not in it, but we'll be reaching out to those districts that they are targeting and hoping that you can share that information with your colleagues and communities. And on that note, Shirley, I think I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. And who's next? So we're going to have OPT to talk about the new New York City school bus app that they have for our scholars. So I know I saw Benson and
good morning.
I'm going to pass it over. I'm going to pass it. Oh, I knew your voice was, I knew you looked so familiar, Glenn. So Glenn, I'll pass it to you and you can introduce
Very
who you have with here.
Very ubiquitous. Good morning, everyone. My name is Glenn Risbrook. I'm the Senior Executive Director for Student Transportation for New York City Public Schools. I'm very excited to continue the partnership today with CPAC in the effort to make sure that we provide the best up-to-date resources and support for our children in the city of New York. They deserve it, and we are committed to delivering that. I'm happy that I have our team here from the Office of Pupil Transportation to take you through Via for Schools and how it would be supporting our families and our schools. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to John Benson, who is the Deputy Senior Director of Student Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I'm going to take a step back from my professional persona here and speak to you as a school bus parent myself about the experience this morning. So yesterday, start getting emails from my child's school. It's state testing day at the school. School saying your child must be to school on time. I'm a school bus parent. I rely on the school bus for my child to get to school. So that's a little unsettling knowing the pressure is on. There can't be lateness and what's going to happen with the bus. So I log in first thing this morning. I can log into our application, which we rolled out on January 19th citywide. And I could see the bus is moving in real time. I could see it's running. I could see it's on time. I could see where it is in space, get my child to the bus, and I can be here with you all today to make this presentation without any chaos in my morning. So it's a real game changer for families, for parents, just in terms of the peace of mind and visibility into what's going on with the school bus day in, day out, AM and PM, route by route across the entire city. So we're excited. We've gotten this done. It's been years in the making. I'm going to turn it over to Laquana Chambers, our Executive Director of Communications and Engagement, and Anusha Anantharaman, our Chief Innovation Officer, to do a brief presentation on the details of this product. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry that I am not on camera as I am having a little bit of technical difficulties with my computer this morning, but I am hoping that I can show you my screen. Can everyone see it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So this morning, as John and Glenn mentioned, I'm just going to give an overview of Via, our new app that we're very excited about, because what we'll discuss in this presentation is we want to make sure that parents have yellow bus service, but also that it's making their child's
Miss Attendance, I think.
in the morning.
What's the
In the morning.
You go ahead, Laquana. I think we're okay.
But I think something's wrong with my screen. It won't move. Let's see. 1 second.
Laquana, I can present. I can share the screen if you.
Yes, can you please? Because I'm not sure what is happening.
Because I think I'm already sharing the screen. Is everyone able to see the first slide, Office of Pupil Transportation overview?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that's your screen, not mine. That's why I can't move it. Perfect. Okay. Can you go to the next slide, Anusha, please?
Yes, sure. Okay. There is slight lag. Sorry for that.
Okay.
No worries. We're all having technical issues this morning, so don't worry. I think it's Zoom, to be honest.
Yeah, I think so too. I switched over to the next slide a few seconds ago. Okay, thank you.
Okay, because I see slide 3 where we didn't go to slide 2.
Good now?
Yes, thank you. So just to review the mission statement, so in accordance with Chancellor's Regulations A801, the New York City Public Schools provides transportation to all eligible New York City students in public, charter, and non-public schools in partnership with the Metropolitan Transit, which is our MTA, which we're all familiar with, and our school age and preschool bus companies. Our mission is to ensure safe and reliable transportation to and from school.
So Laquana, I've already transitioned to the next slide, but it's not showing up.
Okay, so how about we do this? I'm just going to go over the presentation. We'll share the visuals since we're just having some issues. We'll share the visuals later. But I just kind of want to get through the presentation because I know you all have other things on your agenda. So the next thing is just the scope of student transportation in New York City. New York, we have the largest ground fleet in North America, which is about 11,000 vehicles. And as I mentioned, we provide service to public, charter, and non-public schools. And just imagine we have a fleet that's twice the size of the MTA that is helping our students get to school every day. And we don't only service the 5 boroughs, we also service Westchester, Long Island, New Jersey, and Connecticut. So just some additional quick stats. So along with the amount of vehicles we have, we service upwards of 150,000 students every day. We partner with 70 plus contracted school bus vendors, and we distribute over 1.6 million Metro cards. So what we came here to discuss is just VIA and how families can see the location of the bus, right? This is something we're excited about. This is an app that caregivers can use that is going to allow them to be able to see their students' bus on a map once they log in. And we're hoping that this app will be making sure parents have a peace of mind and just providing that peace of mind, right? You open up a app, you put in your credentials, and then you're able to see your child's bus moving as it makes its way to you. And we're also looking to the future to add additional features to the app, which is going to make parents' lives even easier when they're dealing with their morning commute. So how can families use the app? So if you have an iPhone or Android, you can download the app in your app store or in Google Play. But if you don't have a phone, we also have a desktop version that you can also have the same functionalities just on your desktop. And to log in, parents will need to have NICSA credentials. And once you have your credentials, you can log in and then track your child. Or if you have multiple children, you can track them on their bus. And then we're going to, and also what it will provide is your student's route number and the driver's name on the top of the screen. Now, if you happen to log in and you're having some issues, we do have support that you can either have direct support right on the app, or you can always use our customer service hotline if that functionality, for whatever reason, isn't working for you. And so how have we communicated this information to families, right? Because it's one thing to have the app, but it's another thing to have parents actually using it. So we do want to get the word out there and make sure that families know about this app and are downloading. So we have sent backpack letters to families through principals, and that's available on our website also. We also send direct emails to all families who take the yellow bus. And then we have our microsite, which gives you step-by-step instructions on how to download the app, download your NICSA credentials, and it also gives you, we have some helpful videos on the bottom of that web page that is going to basically let you see what it looks like to log in, what it looks like if you're having any issues signing in, how to contact support, and even shows a video of your bus on an app.
So Laquana, I am sharing the microsite page as you're speaking.
Okay. So, yep. So this is what I was discussing. So you can, this page is very helpful for parents because it gives them basically all the information they need to download the New York City Schools Bus app, and then to also help troubleshoot and give step-by-step instructions on how to create a Nix account if they already don't have an account. And so, Anusha, if you can just scroll to the bottom of the page, we also have frequently asked questions. So if there's just some things, you can just kind of go through that to see the frequently asked questions. And if you can just click on the accordion that has the videos, we can just go through like 2 of the videos so that you can see in real time what that looks like.
Should I click on the video, the first
Yeah.
video?
Yep, sure. So the first video is showing you where our FAQs are. And if you have any issues with any of these, you can view these directly in the app. And then Anusha, if we could go to the logging in video, just to show parents what it looks like when they're logging in.
Is it in the same?
Yes, you just have to skip to the next video. It'll have the title.
Yeah.
If you use the right arrow to the top where it says 1 of 7.
Okay. So I'm in the login video.
Yes. So it just shows you what it looks like to log in. So, you can go through all of these videos for the different scenarios. And it will just basically show you what it looks like in reality, to log in, to log out, and different things of that nature. But those videos are very helpful, and it gives you a visual of what the app looks like. Thanks, Anusha. We have
Like Juana, that for those who don't have the smartphone, we also have a web version of this app.
yes.
So so everyone can use this whether or not they have a smartphone. I think it makes that's a game changer, because then everyone, it's applicable to the entire universe of caregivers. So just wanted to mention that as well.
Yes. We also have a webinar on Parent University, which you can use your NICSA credentials to log in and watch that webinar that we have online there. Currently, it is only in English, but we are working to get it up in different languages. And then we had a 1-pager that we share with all advocates and our partners so that, they could also get the message out about the VIA app. So what's next for this app, right? We want notifications on expected arrival time of the bus, right? Soon you will receive push notifications that let you know when your child arrived, when your child was dropped off. And also what will be very helpful is a notification letting you know if the bus has a delay for whatever reason. And then eventually families will be able to use the app to share information on day-to-day attendance and of their child. So eventually future facing students will be able to badge onto the bus, and that you'll know, like, okay, my child has entered the bus. Okay, my child has now left the bus. And that is it for our presentation. Thank you for taking the time and also working with us through our technical difficulties.
No problem. Thank you so much. We had other technical issues this morning as well. I know, Randy, you have
a link to that microsite that Lakwana took us through. I'll add it to the chat. So if you want to.
awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Any questions? I know, Randy, you have a question. You could go first. Anybody else, you have questions? Raise your hands or put it in the chat.
It wasn't related to the bus app. It was related to the driver shortage. So what's happening is we're being told that there's shakers, I guess that's what they're calling them, that have to, if someone calls out, they pick up another shift, another route after. So students are arriving to school late, and then they're also coming home late. So I just wanted to know, and they're missing instruction. So is there anything that you can do, or that we can do to advertise for people to apply for jobs to become bus drivers? And if you could like share a link to something to help with a solution to the problem. I mean, the problem is already there, but if there's a solution where we could have people apply for the jobs so that our kids are not missing instruction. And also if there's any way that parents can just be notified a little earlier, because we're also finding out that they don't know that the driver's not coming till late, but they're not finding out right away. So is there anything that can be done for that?
Sure. Yeah, just to go over what you're being told about shakers. Actually, they're referred to as shake drivers, which is a substitute driver in the case that the regular scheduled driver calls out. Sometimes drivers will call out very late, and the bus companies have to react as quickly as they can, which brings me back to VIA, because right now we are in a reactionary mode when these things happen. And just to let you know that we do hold the bus companies accountable. We do issue them liquidated damages. They are required to notify the schools as quickly as possible when they know that there will be a service issue. So we do hold them accountable. And if it becomes a repetitive issue, we remove the bus routes and assign them to another bus company. But for VIA for Schools, that will allow us to be more proactive, and we will be able, just like the family will be able to track buses, to see when drivers have logged in. Drivers have to subscribe in order for this application to work, and we'll be able to see when a driver hasn't subscribed to the route before the route even supposed to start. So we can be able to interact with the bus companies and find out what the deal is right now with this particular route. And also make sure we get advance notification to the schools as well. So that will help us in real time deal with these issues instead of being reactionary and families finding out at the last minute. And as far as hiring drivers, we are turning over every single stone. We have requested assistance from City Council. They're willing to help. We're going through different scenarios right as we speak about ways that we can entice people to want to be yellow bus drivers. We soon will have hopefully a new bid for bus contracts that will open up the availability of more vendors, MWBE vendors, everything possible to increase the capacity that we have currently. Our bus contracts, as you know, some of you, and if you don't, I could just share this, go back to like 1979. Transportation needs for our families today are much more than they were in 1979. And so we're trying to bring things into the 21st century. And as far as the needs for our children, a bus rebid contract will get us there. But we are turning over every stone, and any help that the CPAC community can provide us as far as directing people that might want to be yellow bus school bus drivers to New York City Public Schools is welcome, and we'll share ways that you can be helpful in that endeavor. But we do recognize that the driver counts that we have are not where they need to be. And we're working on that, and any help that we can get from anyone is very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So I have two.
Oh, Shirley, can I just add two things quickly?
We're a little behind, but go ahead.
Okay, Randy, first of all, I really appreciate the question, and I will tell you, if you can't tell, it's front and center for Glenn and the team, as well as for our vendors, and Glenn and the team work with the actual vendors who are the employers of the drivers on the shortage issues. I do want to remind folks, in part because Adriana, I see, puts this in the chat, ATU and their vendors did reach a deal last summer that increased wages, which we think is really good, as well as avoiding a bus strike. And we are hopeful, and we were just with them yesterday, that will start to further address some of these issues as we start to see wages for our bus drivers and attendants. So we're hopeful in the long term that'll help. I'll just want to say the new contracts Glenn is referring to could be a really big deal, because you could also have more flexible options for drivers, which creates more opportunities and pathways. So we see that as the next bigger thing beyond the day-to-day recruitment. Shirley, I'm done, I promise. Bye.
Thank you, Emma. So 2 more questions, then we're going to move to the well, maybe 3. Then we move to our next agenda item. So I promised the CPAC High School Committee that they asked 2 questions. will the tracking, we pretty much already know the answer. Will the app track the bus outside the boundaries of New York City?
Yes, the answer, wherever the route is going. So we do have routes that go outside of New York City. And for those routes, they will be tracked in real time beyond those borders if the school is outside the borders, yes.
Awesome. We knew that, but we just want to confirm. And the next question, can we get matron and Jimmy, what is it? Para updates on the app as well?
I'm not sure I understand. So whether is the question whether or not the matron or para is present on any given day?
Can they give updates? Because sometimes they change, right? And so will the app give those updates as well besides the driver? That's the question.
The current state, the answer is no. We are actively soliciting feedback on things people would like to see added, and we will take that one under consideration. There's going to be phased enhancements to the application over time. We will take that back and consider whether that's possible. But like you said, right now, it is the route, the location of the route, and you can see the driver's name that's performing the route on that day. The para is not listed, nor is the attendant, but we can see what's possible there and get back.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep.
Rosa, did I ask your question or you still have another question to? Yep, we asked. So I'm going to share my screen. So I would like to thank OPT, Glenn, Benson, Chambers, Anusha. Thank you for joining us this morning and sharing again the new app, and we look forward to many more things, innovative things coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, so that was that. We said before, for those who came in late, DIT is going to be postponed to next month. So right now we're going to hear from New York City Health in partnership with New York City Health about COVID-19 updates. And I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to allow, I see Miss Egerton, you Office of School Health, you already unmuted. So I'm going to let you introduce yourself and your team, and you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Shirley, were you going to share our slides?
That's correct. So if you want me to
great.
start now, I can start
Well,
sharing it now if you feel like.
Yeah, I'll introduce us first and then you can share. Thanks, Shirley. Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thanks for inviting us here. I'm Tracy Egerton. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Office of School Health, which is actually a dual agency office that sits both in the Department of Health and the New York City Public Schools. I have some of my colleagues on here that I'd love to introduce to you also so everyone can see their faces and know who they are. I'm going to pass it to Gail, and then maybe you can introduce yourself, Gail, and then pass it to Jessica.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Nice to see you. My name is Gail Admin, and I am the Executive Director of Nursing with the Office of School Health. Happy to meet you all and partner with you all moving forward. So I'll pass it over to Jessica. Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Gail. Nice to be here. And my name is Jessica Cowett. I'm the Chief of Staff in the Office of School Health. I will turn it back over to Tracy for the COVID guidance update.
Yes. So happy to be here to talk about the new guidance around COVID, but also really around all respiratory illnesses. And I think just in the chat, we're going to, oh, thank you, Shirley, for sharing the slides. I'm going to just drop where all of this is on the public-facing website. So everyone has a link to it. I think everyone knows as of March of this year, we had updated guidance from CDC around COVID. They basically dropped their minimum isolation period, which was, their guidance of staying home or staying away from others for at least 5 days if you test positive or if you have symptoms of COVID. And so basically what they've done as immunity throughout the population has grown, and they've been looking at, the severity of COVID going down, is they have really aligned COVID guidance with their guidance around all other respiratory diseases. And really it's symptom-based rather than just, testing positive for COVID. So let's go through that. I mean, the main thing is that they really dropped the mandated 5-day isolation period. So next slide, please. So these are the new updates. I just want to say that, you know, we put out guidance for schools and for families and students in schools in conjunction with our colleagues at the Department of Health, so that everything aligns with, you know, the state guidance and also with the federal guidance. So the new guidance really is, if your child has symptoms of COVID, they should get tested and separate from others until they know what they have. Your child should really stay home until they're fever-free without medication for at least 24 hours and their symptoms are getting better. This is basically our guidance for all respiratory illnesses. And if they test positive and they don't have symptoms, then they actually don't have to stay home. They can come to school, but they should really take precautions to prevent spreading the virus to others, especially if they're around people who are at, particularly at home, if they're around people who are at high risk for illness, like people who might have immunocompromised conditions, or the elderly. Next slide, please. So really, what should they do if they do come to school after they have been sick and they're coming back to school, or if they've tested positive and they don't have symptoms? Really, the guidance is they should consider wearing a well-fitting mask when around other people and indoors, distance themselves from others who are at high risk for serious illness. They should practice good hygiene by frequent hand washing and covering their cough. And if they do develop symptoms, then they should really stay home until they are fever-free and their symptoms are getting better, and then start the process over. So these are really precautions that they should take really 5 days after they return to school. And so it's really about trying to align this with our guidance with other respiratory illnesses. And I will say, like, I think the two most important things that really we want to suggest for all people to stay healthy and to avoid infecting others is to stay up to date on vaccinations, including flu and COVID vaccinations, and then to stay home if you are sick. And don't come back to school until you're feeling better and your symptoms are subsiding. And I think I'll leave it at that. We put in the chat where those the guidance is on the public-facing website. We did send this guidance out to schools last month, right after CDC had changed their guidance and updated it. So I will just see if there's any questions.
Yeah, so first up, we have Adriana Alice.
Hi, Adriana.
Hi, Tracy. Good morning. Good morning,
Good
everyone.
morning.
I'm going to try to compose myself just for a moment. This guidance is based on the CDC's updated recommendations, and I understand that I think many of us who are COVID cautious still feel abandoned by this and continue to feel abandoned by the absolutely shameful response that New York City Public Schools has had to the ongoing struggles that our student population and our parents and families are having with respect to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. I understand that the CDC is the operating body on this, but this is not common sense. This is nonsensical. And you are the chief of student health, right? You're like the highest ranking person there, which I assume means you have medical experience or a medical degree. Does this make sense to you? Does a disease that is communicable and can very easily be mitigated by very specific plans, right? We know from barn studies how to aerate large spaces, and the fact that barns have better air quality than New York City Public Schools do it should radicalize all of us, and we should be ashamed collectively that that is the case. Please do not send your kids to school if they are sick. If they haven't tested having a fever, right? If they have not had a fever in a day, please wait. We know that the current strains of COVID-19 take a little bit longer to show up on our tests because our tests have not been updated since very early on in this pandemic. We also know that last week, I believe it was the first time this year that we've had less than 1,000 deaths in a week from COVID-19. And we also know that those are severely miscounted. Check your wastewater reports, guys. Please don't send your kids sick to school. New information that's coming out about this disease likens it closer to HIV, which is very scary. And COVID-19 seems to affect our immune systems in very similar ways. I'm going to say the thing that we all hate to hear: do your own research, please. And thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks for that. I think we are trying to still, be serious about COVID guidance and COVID prevention. I think that, we can continue to echo what you're saying. Please stay home when you're sick. Do not come to school when you're sick. That's the most important thing. And I think, the guidance around masking after you do return to school is important also for people to know and for people to understand. And I will also say, I know facilities has been working and continues to work to increase air quality and air circulation in schools. I mean, that's an ongoing thing. It is always challenging given the buildings and the number of buildings that we have, but that is something that is emphasized and I know is being worked on. But I appreciate your comments. Thank you.
I do not see any other questions for you or your team. I want to thank you so much for taking out the time and joining us.
Thanks for inviting us.
No, definitely. So thank you, Gail. Thank you, Jessica. And hopefully we'll see you again very shortly. And if there's any information you think is pertinent that you need to share, please let us know. And we can add you to the agenda in the future. So we appreciate you coming.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. You're welcome. I am sharing my screen again. Where we at? We are here for fiscal year 2025 Fair Student Funding presentation. I am trying to see anyone who's here.
Yeah, hey Shirley, it's Emma.
It's
and
Emma. I knew
have
it
a
was
bunch-
you, Emma, but I was just want to double check.
Here.
You want me to make you a co-host so you need to share your
Yes, that'd
screen,
be great.
correct?
Yes.
All right. So
I'm-
everyone, we should be familiar with Emma Vedehara. She is going to give us start off with the Fair Student Report. And Emma, you have the floor.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I have a number of members of our finance team here too. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves quickly while I try and screen share, which
Sure. So Sarita Scott, I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at New York City Public Schools.
Anybody else, guys?
I'll jump. Oh,
Bridget, go ahead. Go ahead, Bridget.
Hi. Oh, you can hear me? I was speaking.
We got you now.
Okay. Hi, I'm Bridget Fields. I work with school budgets.
And we have Thalia on. I don't know if we're having technical issues. We also have Thalia and I believe Karma on from our budget team who are having trouble unmuting. We're all having technical issues too as well. So did I screen share appropriately though, Shirley?
Yeah, well, you have it like in
not the correct way. Okay, hold on.
Yeah.
I know. I didn't know that. That's where I always go wrong. Good?
Yeah. Yes. It's good because
got it.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay. So first of all, thank you everybody for joining us and thanks for the time. I realize you guys have a very packed agenda, so I'm going to try and go fairly quickly through the presentation and then leave time for some questions. Agenda, we're going to spend a minute or two on the New York City Public Schools budget overall, just because we think it's important context for fair student funding and why it's so critical for our schools. I know some of you have sat through longer presentations about our budget. We're happy to come back and do that at any time, but we're just going to do the brief version today. Then we're going to talk about fair student funding, which is of course why we are here today. It is up for a panel for educational policy vote this month as we look towards next year. So wanted to make sure we briefed you on it. And then if we have time, we'll do an overview of some work we're doing around school budget transparency at the recommendation of the Fair Student Funding Working Group. And if not, we're going to come back on that anyway. Here's our budget. Overall, our budget at this point is $39.4 billion, which is a lot of money. As those of you know who have sat through this presentation before, this is what that looks like overall. Basically, out of that $39.4 billion, which is the total amount, about 40% sort of comes off the top for really critical things, but things that are not directly supporting our schools and students each day, and things that we don't have a lot of discretion over on any given day. That's our employee benefits. So that's our benefits for our current and our past employees. That's our debt payments. Those two together, benefits including pension and our debt payments, those two together come to about $10.8 billion at this point. About $3 billion at this point this year are going to charter schools. Those are requirements under state law for the funds we send to charter schools for students and for leases. About $2.5 billion is going to non-public and contract schools for special education services, and sometimes because federal law requires us to send some of their dollars to non-public schools. So that's $16 billion off the top. Then the rest of it is where the money really hits our schools and our CBOs and our early childhood providers. The biggest chunk of that, which is we're going to talk about today, goes to schools, about $15.5 billion flowing to our K-12 schools this year into school budgets. A bit over $2 billion goes to early childhood programs. That's district programs and CBO programs, 0 to 5. About $4.8 billion this year goes to school operations. That's our facilities, that's our electric bills, that's our custodians, that's the actual food our kids eat, and our food workers who serve them and prepare that food. That's our buses. That's VIA too. That's a very small piece of it. And then about 200 million, less than 1%, goes to our central administrative offices. This is a very small portion of the whole. It's also where the most of the pegs over the past few years have hit. So it's a smaller portion than it used to be even. And then about 250 million goes to our superintendent staffs and CSEs. And that's another 1%. So that's sort of the big picture version. Also, as a big picture reminder, this is where our money comes from. A bit over half of our money comes from the city. A bit over a third of our money comes from the state. And the rest of our money comes from the federal government. As I know many of you are aware, about half of that federal money that we're relying on this year is one-time dollars. This is the last year for those dollars, so we have been working hard with our city and state partners to hopefully replace as much of that as possible next year. But that's the federal stimulus money, the $2 billion here. So this is where our money goes from. Overall this year, we are spending about $31,000 per student. That's a number that has gone up over time. And just to say it, that's a number that doesn't include transportation, food, or debt payments. So this number is not equivalent to the last slide we looked at. These are the numbers we put into our per student calculations. This is our school budgets. So biggest slice of that pie was school budgets. This is what that school money is. And as you can see, and that's why we're going to spend more time on it today, the biggest chunk within school budgets is fair student funding. That's the biggest set of money we drive to our schools based on student enrollment and student need. And principals and school leadership teams have autonomy about how they use those dollars. So this is what our funding to schools looks like overall. With all that context, thanks for bearing with all the pie charts. I'm going to turn to FSF. So again, I know many of you are very familiar with this. Some of you helped us reshape how FSF worked last year through the Fair Student Funding Working Group. Many of you have given input on it for years, way before that, way before I was here. Thank you. And we'll continue to do so, which I appreciate. Fair student funding, largest funding stream we provide to our schools, as I just said, a bit over 10 billion. Based on the number of students enrolled at the school and the specific needs of those students. So fair student funding is very specifically designed to give additional dollars to schools serving students with additional needs, whether those are special education needs, whether those are academic needs, now whether those are students in temporary housing. That's the purpose, to drive additional dollars from an equity perspective to schools serving students with additional needs. It's about 2/3 of our school budgets. You just saw that on the last slide. Some of the other big funding streams you might have heard of that go to school budgets include like Title I and IDEA, the two federal funding streams that sit outside Fair Student Funding. Many of you know this, but FSF, Fair Student Funding FSF, is about our K-12, D1 through D32 and high schools. Fair Student Funding isn't how charter schools are funded. It's not how 3K and pre-K are funded. And it's not how D75 and D79 are funded. So this presentation is just about that funding stream that goes to D1 through 32, K through 12. And then we'll talk about this more. And I know many of you are very familiar with the process at the school level, but FSF intentionally provides principals and school communities with flexibility about how those dollars are used. That's not true of all the other funding streams we send to schools. A lot have to be used for certain things, and FSF provides more flexibility than that. How does it work? As I said, it's driven by students and their needs that are worked into the formula. Every school gets a foundation amount to start with, $225,000, and then gets additional dollars for each of their students and the additional needs of those students, which we will talk about. Finally, we modify the formula for collective bargaining. So one way to think about that is we obviously just reached agreements with our teachers and principals to provide them with very well earned raises. We just put in the dollars to school budgets for those agreements on top of FSF. And so that money flows out to ensure schools can cover those costs on top of the per capita part of FSF. As you guys know, when the chancellor first got here, he got a lot of feedback on FSF on how it hadn't been tweaked enough in the past few years, on some really specific priorities around students in temporary housing, and decided to set up a Fair Student Funding working group in our first year. Big group, and some folks here were a part of that basically took a look at the formula, took a look at a lot of recommendations from stakeholders, took a look at a lot of different numbers in terms of what potential tweaks would be, and made a series of recommendations. Two of those recommendations about the weights are recommendations that the chancellor and the mayor did take and act on. And this year is how we are doing FSF, and that will continue into next year. And those two recommendations, one is adding a new weight to support students in temporary housing. So for every student in temporary housing at a school, the school gets some additional money. That has been, I will say, this work was done at the beginning of when we started welcoming our asylum-seeking students. It has been really critical, given that many of those students are students in temporary housing, and it is driving dollars to the schools that are taking them in. The other additional weight the working group recommended that we worked in is called the concentration weight. And that's basically just additional dollars to schools with the highest proportion of students with a lot of different needs. That includes poverty, that includes academic needs, that includes students in the foster system, students in temporary housing. But it's basically the idea that there's a good amount of research on showing aggregated need requires additional supports for students, and building that right into our formula. There's a couple of other recommendations from the working group we're also working on that don't have to do with the weights. One was how we look at special education appeals. One was increased transparency. We're working on those as well. Going to spend less time on that today. So with all of that, these are the proposed Fair Student Funding weights for next year, which is why we are here today. These are the same as the Fair Student Funding weights for this year. And they include the STH weight, they include the additional concentration weight. We are proposing to continue those for next year. We are glad in terms of how they have driven additional equity in a formula that was already pretty equitable. And then these are some of the other categories where we provide additional supports for schools. So students, the academic intervention pieces are about students with academic needs, students in temporary housing, English learners based on the programs they're in, special education based on the programs they're in, and then a set of high school weights for specific types of high school programming. And so these are the weights we are proposing for next year. The panel for educational policy will vote on these next month. And then I'm going to do one more slide and then I will stop, Shirley. Again, I appreciate many of you have seen this before, but this is what all those numbers sort of add up to, right? Ava and Miles are both students at our schools, each of whom qualify for a set of additional weights. And then this is how those might add up for additional dollars for those students, for additional weights for each of those students, and the schools directly receive those dollars to use with some flexibility. Who decides how the money is spent at the school level? Again, appreciate many of you are far more are very familiar with how school leadership teams work, but principals do have a lot of flexibility here. It's different from other funding streams in that way. They and their school leadership teams should be creating the school's CEP based on the school's needs and the budget to support the CEP. Superintendents work with principals on this process and have to approve school budgets and that those budgets are in alignment with the CEP. And that's about the full budget, but FSF is obviously a huge piece of that. And then really quickly, and then I'm going to take down the slides. This is the school budgeting timeline, and this is what we are right in the midst of right now. We're bringing the panel for educational policy has 2 budget votes in the spring. One is the estimated budget, which they voted on last month. One is the fair student funding weights, which they are voting on next week. Those fair student funding weights are a critical piece of what we need to actually form school budgets. The other thing we need is school enrollment projections. So what you don't see on here is over the past few months, our enrollment team have been working with principals and superintendents to project enrollment for next year. Those are finalized just now, actually. And so once the panel for educational policy approves FSF weights, our finance team then works quickly to look at the enrollment projections, to look at the fair student funding formula, and put out budgets to schools as quickly as we can. Last year, that was right at the end of May, early June, and that's what we are expecting and hoping again this year. That's the timeline we try and stick to give schools as much time as possible once we have the pieces. Principals and their school leadership teams will propose budgets in June, and then in July, superintendents certify alignment between budgets and CEPs. I'm going to take this down for a second, stop, and open up for questions.
I have a question for, I know AJ, give me a second. I have a question for you. Well, Emma, would you like to come back next month? And is 40 minutes good to be a more condensed version of the fair student funding, or you need more time than that?
I think we're good, and we really did want to come to you before. I mean, that's all the key information, and that's the key information in terms of what PEP is voting on next week, which is what's critical for us to start to support school budgets. So good. We're happy to come back on a longer whole budget presentation if people want.
Okay, so I'll see what membership want, and we'll put you for next month, which I believe is the 9th. So I appreciate you. So we have Adriana. Nobody else. Can you put that? I know Manhattan High School's asked if can you put your info, Emma, in the chat so Manhattan High Schools can have you do a presentation for them.
Rosa, you must have my info somewhere, but yes, of course I will do that.
All right, awesome. So, Adriana, you have the floor.
Hi, everyone. Again, Emma, softball question, I promise. I thank you for explaining the updates, especially with respect to the students in temporary housing. Super appreciate. Can you explain how we're handling and or mitigating inflation rates with respect to the budget? Because things cost more now than they did, like even last year. And if we're not taking that into like account in real time, how are we making sure that we're actually funneling more spendable dollars versus, dollars that show up on the screen? Thank you.
That's a great question. just since you asked the question and you used the word inflation rates, I just want to use this as an opportunity to say the state is proposing to cut how inflation is calculated in state foundation aid, which means a cut to us, which is not a good thing for us. So any of you who, spend quality time in Albany talking to legislators, please know that there's actually this little thing they're trying to do about inflation that sounds wonky. That means less money. We calculate 140 million fewer dollars for New York City public schools. So with that, sorry, Adriana. Yeah, so that's a really good question. What I would say is we do not directly look at inflation. However, we do, the biggest portion of FSF and of school budgets by far goes to staff, like by far. And we do look at increases in staff salaries and increases in collective bargaining rates, including increases through collective bargaining rates. So FSF builds into it what the average teacher salary is as that goes up, and includes in it increases to that aligned with collective bargaining. So the bargaining agreement we reached this year, which is quite substantial, we're directly sending those dollars out on top of what schools were already receiving to make up for that difference. So that's not direct about inflation, but our biggest cost is salaries by far, and we do find ways to take that into account as that increases over time. The other thing I would just say is over the past couple of years, we have looked for other ways to send additional dollars into school budgets. Those won't all be sustainable with the end of the stimulus cliff, and they're not related to inflation, frankly. But at the beginning of this year, we did hold school budgets harmless. That's not something we can do going forward because of the stimulus money, but we did do that. We also put an additional $215 million in state money into school budgets. That has to be used for C4E, which I know you're familiar with, but it is additional dollars out there, and we'll continue to be looking for things like that as we move forward. And so between those two and the additional students in temporary housing wait, we're starting to talk about hundreds of millions of additional dollars in school budgets beyond what FSF would have done, although it's not linked to inflation. Does that help?
And Emma, if you don't mind, if I could just add one more thing, when we're thinking about our overall budget and how we're advocating for it, we always, the backdrop is always how our expenses are growing on a year-to-year basis and the funding that we need in order to support it.
Awesome. So we're going to take one more question that's in the chat. I see the chancellor came on, but the Manhattan High Schools was asking for information from you, Tracy and Gail. If you could share your information in the chat, someone from the school office of health,
Yeah,
that would
we
be
did that.
appreciated.
Yeah, we put it in the
Awesome.
chat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the last question, do you have access to schools' bank accounts? Is that supposed to be public knowledge? Oh, damn. I don't know if that was for you. I was leaving. But but maybe it is from you. But go ahead. Answer that question. I think I could answer that question.
Yes.
But I'm sorry, whoever just text me, chat me, text me right now to see if that's for Emma or that was, or is that for me?
Shirley,
Okay,
I'm gonna.
it says whoever can answer. So go ahead, Emma. I will let you answer first, and then
Go ahead, Sarita.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say we don't have access to schools' bank accounts, and it's not public. It doesn't even flow through our overall New York City public schools budget.
Okay, so I'm going to answer from, so when you fill out your interim and annual financial report, that's how, okay, the New York City Public School do file taxes with exception of 501(c)(3) or sorry, except for those exceptions. That's how they know how much PAPTAs and President's Council fundraise. As well, because you're filling out those annual reports. But otherwise, no, the New York City public schools don't have access to your individual maybe just the school bank account. How about the actual school bank account? Because I'm thinking PAPTA. How about the schools accounts? Like the school have their own bank account. Maybe that's what she's asking. Now I don't know the answer to that.
No, it's the same answer.
Okay,
We don't
so
have access.
they would have to report it like they do. They have their own reporting mechanism to New York City Public Schools. So I hope that helps Josephine.
And
All
Adriana,
right.
I would just say, just because you dropped this in the chat, if there's we really appreciate any support at the state level at this moment. It's really critical, and they seem to be striking a deal that sort of protects all the districts that are losing enrollment, but still impacts us. If there's additional info we can share, please let us know.
All right. I am going to thank you, Emma, and your team for joining us and giving us a overview of the Fair Student Funding for the next fiscal year. And hopefully we will have you back. And if you would like them to do a more conducive or condensive presentation here, please just put it in the chat so we have an idea, and then we'll invite them for next month. So without further ado, we're going to give it to New York City Public Schools Chancellor David C. Banks. Good morning for joining us. I know he came in with you, Elaine, with Chief Lindsay. So did he drop off?
1 sec.
Oh, there we go. So Chancellor Banks, you have the floor.
He's muted.
I don't know if
Hi.
she said 1 sec
Hi,
or anything.
Hi,
Go
Shirley.
ahead.
We just need 1 second.
Okay.
I guess we're all
So
in too many tech issues today, but
yeah,
he's
there's
coming.
tech issues.
There he is.
Yep.
There he is.
Hi, everybody.
Good morning, Chancellor. Good morning.
Right.
Beautiful artwork behind you.
Yeah, I always like to show this off. This is the artwork, the Harlem Renaissance. This was done by the students of the Thurgood Marshall Lower Academy in Harlem. All 5th grade students, 10 years old. I had this big white space behind me when I took over this office, and the principal of the school, who's now the deputy superintendent in District 5, Dawn, she came in and took a look at the layout and had her kids go to work on it, and they put it together. That is a school that has a major focus on the arts. And I'm telling you, we did a grand unveiling here. Each one of these pieces is tells a story about Harlem, where these kids are growing up. And I think it's amazing. It's an amazing display from all of these 10-year-old kids. So every time I get a chance, if I'm doing a Zoom, I always try to feature the kids. So the kids at Thurgood Marshall Academy Lower School, shout out to them.
Awesome. So you have any updates you would like to personally give to us? Or do you just want to go right into questions?
Well, I think any updates, I would say to you, I've been summoned to testify before Congress about anti-Semitism. And so I will be preparing to go to Washington, D.C. For the Subcommittee on Education. And as you've seen, many of these university presidents have had to go and testify. I believe the president of Columbia University is testifying next week. And so May 8th, I will be testifying together with 2 other superintendents, I believe, from around the country on just what are some of the things that we're doing to meet this moment, specifically as it relates to anti-Semitism. And we've done a lot since we've been here. And a lot of this started with the incident at Hillcrest High School. But since then, we've had issues of anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and, listen, we've had issues of homophobia and lots of other ways in which people demonstrate a hate and intolerance and lack of respect for other people. So we've got a lot of work that we've got to do to continue to help our kids to learn, not to see people as the other, but to see the humanity in everyone and to show love and respect for everyone. So we've been doing a lot of work in that space. Still have a long way to go. And we all play a role there, including all of you. We all play a role in how we have to show up better and help our kids to have a deeper understanding and a love and appreciation for everyone around them. So that's kind of my news of the day.
Thank you. I appreciate that because the environment has becoming very toxic and people are forgetting that it's okay to disagree, at this point, and then using a lot of labeling because of disagreeing. We should be able to disagree without putting labels to that. And so hopefully it takes all of us to clear up that the environment. There's always an individual here or there, but it's become very the air we breathing is becoming very toxic when we're having discussions in the space.
You're right. And it's happening all over the country. Country has been so divided. It's really it's deeply, deeply troubling. And that's why leadership matters. And how we show up as adults and how we, as my dad would always say, we can disagree without being disagreeable. And I try to live by that. And I will tell you, this has been, if you ask me almost 2.5 years in now as chancellor, what has been the most challenging thing, I will tell you unequivocally, it is dealing with adults who behave badly. That's it. And kids are kids. I mean, that's part of the reason why they're kids. We got to help teach them and help them to grow and to get better. But I think the thing that's been most disappointing for me is just some of the adults that I deal with. I think everybody's entitled to their opinion, and we don't all have to agree with each other. But being able to work well together, express your opinion with a level of respect, and just show up the right way. That's the way I was raised. But I'll tell you, I deal with a lot of folks who are who I just think as adults don't behave the way that I would expect that responsible adults would behave. And a lot of these things are brought to my attention, and I'm told, you're the chancellor, you got to do something about all of these people. And the kids have never been a problem for me, never. I expect that we have things that we have to do to help kids as they grow and mature. But it's always a little frustrating when you have to deal with so many adults who don't play by those same rules. But we're seeing that all across the country. We got a lot of work to do, and all you can continue to do is be the best you that you can be, and hope that other people will try to emulate and at least show up being reasonable and being responsible and recognizing that your opinion is no more valid than anybody else's. We all have opinions, and everybody deserves to have their opinion heard and respected. And that's what I try to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I think everybody here on this platform is in agreement with that, and we're all accountable for our own actions. I'm not seeing any hands. Nobody want to say anything, have no questions. Yes. So is Adriana the only one who had coffee this morning?
Let me say one other thing, then maybe this will spark. Sure. Maybe this will spark a hand. I think I just saw one hand, right? Yep. From Adriana. But as you all know, the report came out from the State Education Department a couple of days ago about mayoral control, what I like to refer to as mayoral accountability in our schools. In many ways, it's largely inconclusive. People have been working on this for the last 2 years. I think a lot of people thought it was going to be something more definitive than it turned out to be. But the state was given a mandate. I think they did the best that they could in trying to meet that mandate. They hosted a series of forums, as you all know, around the city. They talked to lots of people, including folks who didn't come to the forums, were allowed to submit written testimony in their position. As you all should be clear that I've certainly come from the place of somebody who believes that we ought to continue mayoral accountability. Even if there's some good suggestions around how we can be tweaked to strengthen it and make it better. But I will tell you, I came up in the system as a, as a teacher, an assistant principal before we had mayoral accountability. And there was a reason why we went to mayoral accountability. There was a lot of, when you start talking about adults behaving badly, I saw that firsthand myself. I was in District 17 in Brooklyn, and I saw a lot of other districts as well. Not saying everywhere, but in far too many places where we just continue to play politics at the highest level with our kids' lives. Prior to going to mayoral control, the graduation rate for New York City kids was 46%. 46% was the graduation rate right before we went to mayoral control. We're about 80% now. So say whatever you want about, well, we don't think, enough voices are heard on this, that, or the other. Though that's hardcore data. But what is also hardcore data is that before we got here, even under mayoral control, 64% of Black kids were not reading on grade level. Even under mayoral control, 63% of Latino kids not reading on grade level. So there is no perfect system. And I believe that on balance, it's my opinion. Other people have a totally different opinion, and that's fine, is that this system works better than what we saw before, which I saw a system that was rife with corruption. I saw it. I knew principals who had to pay for their positions. You didn't even have an opportunity to even be in that space to get a job unless you knew somebody at the school board that you had to kind of go and do what you needed to do in order to even get a position. We certainly don't want a system like that again. I pray not. So there were lots of challenges in the past. I think it's better now. I do not think it's perfect. I think we still have a long ways to go. We need to continue to look at ways and how we engage all of our families and our voices and our educators and our students. So it's a way of just trying to get better at the system. But the report is out. If you have not seen it, it's publicly available to anybody to look at now. And I would encourage you all to go look at it. It's a big report, almost 300 pages, and go through it and see what they've said. The ultimate thing that they said is that they think we should establish a commission to continue to study it. So they've been studying it for 2 years, and they said we should keep on studying it. So it is what it is. We'll see what the state does. Ultimately, it is the state legislators. They are the ones who are going to make the determination of whether or not we keep mayoral accountability of the schools. My final point on it is that I think under this administration, I believe, have earned the right to have it extended. We work very hard to be open and transparent, to listen to the various communities all across the city. And our ELA scores are up, our math scores are up, outpacing the rest of the state. Enrollment is up for the first time in 8 years. We've been responsive to CECs all across the city. We've been responsive to elected officials all across the city. This is an administration which has been listening and which has been responding and delivering results. And I think it would be hard for anybody to really argue with that. And so we've not said extend it forever, but we certainly said we think we are on the right track and moving the system in the right direction. And we would hate to see a result that comes out that does not really allow us to continue to do that work. So we will see. Ultimately, it's not my decision, and we'll go from there. So at this point, we'll take a few questions.
I guess. So Adriana, you spoke a lot. So I'm going to ask the questions in the chat first, and then one of the questions I'm going to ask, the second question first, is about well, first, Dr. Melendez put the report in the link on your behalf, right?
Great.
So the link on mayoral control, the report that came out of New York State Education Department. And I'm going to, so District 6, she's at work, so she's not able to speak, and so she asked me to speak on her behalf. First, she wants to thank you for coming to the Chancellor's Town Hall and addressing District 6 issues and their community of Washington Heights. And her question is regarding PAPTAs being able to hold forums on race relations, and if this is allowed or encouraged by you.
I don't know, anybody on our team want to respond to that? Deputy Chancellor Lloyd or Christina or Dan?
Christina, can you talk about some of the work we have been doing with parent leaders and how we have been approaching that? We can also speak with the PTAs and determine how we can be supportive.
So FACE has been doing a lot of the work of providing professional development through our human rights commission here at the city. And so we've done anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, anti-Blackness, and there's others forthcoming that Jesse shared. We invite CEC and CPAC to come to those meetings. At the PTA level and very local level, you know, education is really local and your communities are very unique spaces. So it's really important to touch base with your superintendent, who also has a lot of resources and ways of being that they're directing in their districts. And so there's a lot of space there for having a conversation so that you can get a better, more on the ground support. But of course, that PTA can, your CC PTA can talk to your CC6 as well if you want some of the resources from us or any others.
Thank you. The next question is, any information on the African American curriculum being introduced to all grades? And I see Ms. Moore is coming in. She probably can answer that question.
Okay,
we also have Dr. Pate on the line as well.
Whoever would like to answer that question.
But somebody
I don't think we can hear her. I think Dr. Pate is actually speaking, but we can't hear her. Alternatively, is Dr. Rux on?
She's on, and so is I saw her on, came on. I don't know if she's still on.
I'm here too. Oh, here's Dr. Rux.
Okay.
Somebody from the team, can we respond to the question?
Yes. So good morning, everyone. Good to see everyone here today. I do know that we are working really hard in terms of the blending that we have done of teaching and learning in DSL. We've been having a lot of meetings and planning professional learning just around how we are rolling out I'm sorry, I just lost my, I keep, yes.
Global African diaspora curriculum.
Yes.
So the question is really around, being able to make sure that it is a resource that is set up across for all grades. We just want to
Yes. So we are working on training our superintendencies and their teams and making sure that this spring and over the summer, this is reaching all of our school communities and our teachers, especially our social studies teachers and our cluster teachers, so they will be able to roll out these resources across whole curriculum.
Yeah, one of the other things I want to add in, I think can you all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. I switched over to my phone. I'm not sure what's going on with the computer. But one of the things that I do want to add just in response to that, and just another layer, is that all of our classrooms, K-12, are being positioned to be culturally responsive, and recognizing that the power within the curriculum is this idea that we get to close the opportunity gap for students. One of the big things that we are absolutely pushing, especially with our Hidden Voices curriculum, is that it's not so much a curriculum as much as it is resources that provide deeper understanding of the diversity and the richness that lives within each and every classroom. And also we are utilizing it to accelerate students' understanding, which really goes right back to what the Chancellor is saying about different is not bad, different is great. But we have to lean into this with our students to just build their knowledge. The other way that we're doing it is also being able to give voices to often marginalized populations of students. And we're really proud of that particular work. So all of these different resources are forthcoming, but we have done some groundbreaking work on a big chunk of resources connected to our untold stories of New York City's history, also LGBTQ+, and our Asian American and Pacific Islander in the United States history, and also stories of the global African diaspora, Volume 1. And what's coming in the spring, I'm super excited about, is that we're doing a part 2 to that, and also Latino history across the United States, and also the Americans with disability across the United States history. So this is just something that we're super proud of, and being able to engage in that work across grade bands K-12. There's even
one thing just to add to that. Oh, sorry, Dr. Pate. But
no, go ahead.
But you know, it is a wonderful thing that we have all this amazing new content from Hidden Voices, including on a global African diaspora. The magic is educators figuring out how to integrate it into the curriculum, because we don't have more instructional days, right? We still have 180 instructional days. We still have 990 hours. They're not expanding with our kids every year. They're not expanding that. And we still have all the same state standards. So it's not like we can decide not to do a unit that the state has said we have to cover, and instead we're going to do something on global African diaspora. So what Dr. Pate and her colleagues are engaged in doing, and really frankly, principals and teachers are engaged in doing right now that the content is out there, is figuring out how to integrate it seamlessly into the units they're teaching that are aligned to standards. And of course, the content was developed with that in mind. It's not, you know, all of them are standards aligned, but figuring out how to integrate it into the scope and sequence that teachers use, that's the work that's happening now. And that's what's going to make it high impact, because what you're going to start to see is it's getting used every year with our kids all over the city, because teachers have figured out, with the support of the folks here at Central and their principals and their superintendents, how to use it within the context of the curriculum they're teaching. So stay tuned. Be great to have you all come in and see that these new curriculum materials in action in schools as we get it rolled out.
And,
Awesome.
and
Thank
Dan,
you.
I can just
Oh,
add as well, one more thing, that at our last superintendent's meeting, we actually had a segment where we were not only exposing them to the resources, but how to use the resources so that they can in turn share that with their principals in their district, which is a very important part of the work that we're doing to ensure that we're reaching the leaders in the district and the principals in the district as well with the curriculum. So I just had to add that piece. Sorry.
thank you so much. No problems. So, Adriana, thanks for being patient. I don't see any other questions. So go ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, Chancellor Banks and everyone from the cabinet. Appreciate you all being here. This question, I believe, is for Deputy Chancellor Weisberg. Hi, Dan. So over the last few months, I've consistently sought understanding as to the School Construction Authority and New York City Public Schools rationale for no longer identifying 77% of the seats in the capital plan according to district, borough, and grade level. This is according to information that has been released by both New York City Public Schools and the School Construction Authority, specifically that from now on, projects will be officially listed in the plan following identification of a suitable site and commencement of the school's facility design process. As I and many others have said before, this is an unprecedented lack of transparency that is eroding public trust and is a major departure from how this information has been shared previously. In February at CPAC, Cora Liu from SCA explained that this removal of transparency is a result of their need, of SCA's need, to, and I quote, adjust their planning framework to support New York City Public Schools' overall class size implementation plan, end quote. So based on all of that, and based on the information that's been shared over the past few months at CPAC and in other locations, what I am trying to understand, and again, if I get an answer to this, I promise I will stop asking about it, Can you explain to me what class size implementation has to do with this unprecedented reduction in transparency? Or more plainly, what does class size implementation have to do with transparency? Thank you.
Yeah, it's almost as if, Adriana, you prepared that question before today. No, that was extremely well said. Thank you for that. And it is. This is one of these things that you struggle to say it in a direct, straightforward way. Deputy Chancellor Videra is on, I believe, as well, and she can jump in. She's deeply involved in this. But the way I will explain it as simply as I can, because it is, I can tell you, Adriana and colleagues, the change is a direct result of the class size law, which has, I mean, there's a lot of focus about the class size law, about the hiring of teachers, and that's a big challenge. But it's also has huge capital impacts. So as opposed to essentially saying under the old system, well, we have X billions of dollars for capacity, we can build X thousands of new classrooms, we're going to work with CCs and superintendents and others, to figure out where the need is most acute, and then we're going to, as you say, Adriana, then we're going to put out information about that. So and so many seats here. Now we need that money, that capital money, and the new classrooms in order to drive compliance with the law. And here's the thing: the law does not say you need capital to address the most acutely overcrowded places. It does not say that. Wherever there is a school which is over the cap, which does not have additional room, and Emma can talk about what we're doing to assess how much room is there, you have to build more classrooms, period. That's if you're at 21 or 28. And so I think, we can certainly have Nina and team come on, and we could do a whole session, Adriana, just on this, because they know more the ins and outs of this than I do. But that is what they are thinking about. We can't simply look at the places with the most overcrowding and make it predetermination. Where the seats are going to be. It's not because they don't want to be transparent. It's because they're going to be called on, and we're going to be called on. By the way, at risk of losing hundreds of millions of dollars in state aid, this is not a small thing, of complying with this law. And so that's what they're trying to do. Emma, anything you would add to that?
I think, Adriana, I appreciate the question. I've heard you ask it. I think just one thing I would say really concretely is this changes how they do planning, right? It used to be looking at communities with demand versus need and identifying those communities and then figuring out what to do about it. Now there's very specific schools that have space issues, right? And there's schools that need 78 classrooms. There's not a lot of them, but there are schools that need 78 classrooms under their current enrollment. And so there's a very specific question about that school and how to handle that, which is different from just building out more seats in places where we know there's growing demand, because you'd want to build out at that school if you are trying to address the issues for that school without capping enrollment at that school, right? So there's a very real trade-off that's different from just building towards demand. And quite honestly, we and they are still working through that, right? As you all know, some of the enrollment versus space trade-offs, which came out of the class size working group recommendations, those are recommendations that have come to us that we are looking at for the future, but that are not something we are looking at doing right now, and not something we're eager to do, quite frankly. And so that links to where they would then build as well. So I would just say it really has changed their planning, because now they need to address needs of specific schools as opposed to communities in a different way. And we have roughly 500 schools that fit in that category, some of which only need a classroom or two, and we're already at work with principals now to figure that out, but some of which have far more substantial needs with their current enrollment that SCA needs to start to work through with us.
All right, so I'm going to try to see if I could clarify what Adriana is trying to say. She is saying that there's a lack of transparency of information and data, right, that is going on during school, and the excuse or the appearance of is because of class size mandate is there's a lack of transparency. She's not questioning implementation of it. Is she's questioning information and transparency coming from school construction authority. I hope I got that correct. She wants to know about she feels there's a removal of transparency, and using the smaller class sizes is a way of excusing the lack of transparency that some are perceiving to be had, especially in regards to that. We had discussions about the blue book and it being updated without input, and not getting a copy of the updated blue book. Those part of the transparency issues when it comes to the school construction authority. And I think she has a follow-up question about that, but I see Rosa, class size work provides recommendations based on class size law, hoping that by June 2024, New York City meets the mandate. So we're going into another discussion. So we could pause that. Adriana, can you just, you want to clarify where you want it? I don't know if I helped clarify it,
That was
your
perfect.
follow-up question.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Shirley. I'm sorry, Adriana. I just wanted to note the time and that the chancellor's going to have to transition to another meeting just before we clarify on this question.
Right. Okay. So they'll clarify with the team, and but I do have to take off now. But it is always good to be with you, even though these moments are very short. But again, you got some of the key folks from our team here that should be able to be responsive to any of the issues that are raised. All right.
All right. Thank you, Chancellor, for being with us, and your team. I know they'll stay and answer those two next things, but we appreciate you. Have fun, even though the weather's not sunny today, but it's fine.
Thank you, Shirley. I appreciate you. Take care of it. Thank you, everybody.
Take care. So
Chair, did you want us to address the
yeah, the transparency part of the
and listen, so Adriana, and again, and Shirley, and anybody, like, it pains me. It really does. I mean, we do everything we can to actually increase transparency. And you're right. I don't deny that this change is reducing transparency. So listen, let's figure out a way. Maybe there is a way in the context of this class size law to increase transparency. But let me give you a very concrete example. It's not an excuse. I got to defend SCA here. This is not an excuse. One of, as you well know, one of the recommendations from the class size working group was to cap enrollment in our most popular schools, right? So that is a way you can comply. There are only a few ways you can comply with the law. One of them is to send fewer kids into the school that is exceeding the caps. SCA, if we're going to do that, it's not something we want to do. Let me be clear. That's going to cut down on parent choice, but that may be one of the things we have to do to comply with the law. SCA needs to see if we're going to cap enrollment at a school, as Emma says, that right now needs 78 new classrooms, then that's not where they're going to build. They got to build somewhere else where we're not capping enrollment that maybe only needs 10 classrooms. Normally, before class size law, they didn't have to worry about that. They would just look at the data, they would engage with the community, and they would ultimately with their board and the mayor make decisions about where they're going to build new schools and new annexes and so forth. Now they got all these variables about if we make those decisions now, and we with our labor partners go in a different direction, then they're going to be out of compliance. So just to say, it's not an excuse, but that doesn't mean we can't figure out within this context a way to be more transparent. So we're all ears on that. I just want to put that context out there. This is not going to be an easy thing to deal. The class size law is not going to be an easy thing to deal with.
Dan, hold on a second, because Randy was mouthing something over there. She was on,
okay.
You know
okay.
what?
No,
you know what?
shaking,
She was on a
she's
small
shaking
working
her head
class
now.
because there was various recommendations. I'm
Right.
pretty sure. I think what is the best thing to do? We need to actually have a conversation on this platform about small class sizes, and I would like you to take the lead, maybe next month, to actually talk about small class sizes, so we can. Because there's a lot of opinions going out there, right? And a lot of feelings. And you said cap enrollment. I don't think all of them wanted to, because there are waivers in the law, right?
Yes.
So so without capping enrollment only, Yeah, there's a possibility. A lot of the parents and advocates has been lobbying to New York State legislator. So I think this is a really good topic to have for next month. And will you willing to commit and talk about
Absolutely.
that?
We are at your service. You know, I would ask Emma as well, but Chair, we're at your service if you want to make that the topic next month. Happy to do that.
Awesome. Thank you. I know we're a little past time. I think I addressed everything. Rosa, did we address we talked about a little bit about small class sizes. We can table that for next month, right? Thank you. So we appreciate, as always, for all of you coming on and helping support and answer our questions. And we appreciate the work you do. So thank you, everybody, for coming on. I'm not kicking you out, but we are going to move on. And I know that some of you have work to do. So
Thank you, Shirley.
other spaces to be. So thank you so much
Thank
again.
you.
And enjoy the rest of your week if you're not staying on. So
Thank
we're
you.
going to, you're welcome. Thank you, DC Lloyd. It was always a pleasure. See, you brighten the space a little bit with your smile. You know, thank you so much.
Thanks, Shirley. Have a good
All
weekend,
right.
everyone.
You too. All right, so I'm going to share my screen. So since we knew yesterday that DIIT was not going to be here, I said maybe let's do a refresher. I just did one on Tuesday for Queens North High Schools and Queens South High Schools. Stakeholders, parent coordinators, and parents, and anyone else who wanted to join. I said maybe we can I'll spill that space out and do this real quick, and then we will go into CPAC's settles not so secret gem on grievances, complaints, etc. How's that sound with everybody? We're good with that. I see shakes of heads. All right, so. Switch. So again, this slide, so Adriana had created this slide for the last time we had a PD a couple of months ago. I believe it was in February on nominations, and this is a refresher condensed. I just want people have opportunity. They have to have questions. So I love this slide. So you see I'm using it, Adriana incorporated within my slides. And the parents are giving really, and parent coordinators and FLCs really loves this. So when you start off, one of the things is you're going to need to know whether you can how you can hold your elections, right? And you see that big X in the middle. Hybrid is not allowed for elections. And I'm going to say that again. It's not allowed. So how we know? So your bylaws is your governance body, right? For your PAPTAs, for your president's councils. Does your bylaws allow for virtual elections? Are you using your President's Council, PAPTA, New York City Public Schools Zoom account? If that's a yes, because the only Zoom, you can use different virtual platforms, but when it comes to Zoom, you must use the New York City Public Schools Zoom. You can't use your personal Zoom for those spaces. So if it's yes to both, then most likely you should be able to hold a virtual elections. And then again, it's always important to familiarize the A660 and your bylaws, and FACE does have a virtual guideline for elections. And in that guideline, again, you must use a DOE Zoom, because I'm hearing that some, and I'm not talking about president's councils at the school, well, yeah, president's councils too, they are using personal Zooms. That's a no-no, right? It's a no-no. And it must be allowed by your bylaws. In person, have you reviewed your bylaws? Have you reviewed your A660? Do you feel prepared? And what you should be doing that as PAPTA president, as president's council, who should be reviewing nominations, elections themselves to help their associations. You need to do that. And you say yes to all, good luck. If not, so President's Council is reaching out to CPAC. We've been supporting it that way, right? Not to do elections, but just to support on how they should be done, what should be done, when is it be done, because your bylaws dictates when you have elections. That goes for president's councils and PAPTA, right? The reg says, and this is important, this is why it's very important, the regs want president's councils to do their elections in June so they can support their associations over the summer, because we all should be preparing for the next school year. You know, the school starts preparing in January, right? We need to prepare before September comes. September, we should be prepared going into the new school year, because again, you know how I feel, parent voice is very important. I think there's something on the bottom here. Okay, so A660, notification is key. It applies both to regular meetings and your general membership meeting and your election meeting. So you are going to do it 10 days. How about doing it at least 11 days? I try to do it at 15 days, because you must give the school or your FLC, the superintendent's office, time to review it for appropriateness, meaning, you know, no foul language. I don't think none of us do that, for appropriateness and for grammar. They cannot change your notice, but they have 24 hours to do so, right? So please give them enough time to do that, and make sure, count 11 days and then schedule 11 days from your time election that it should go out at minimum, right? To make sure 10 days. So the 10th day will fall right before your meeting, right? And this is a separate notification, right? So most of us have our elections during the general membership calendar meeting. Again, it's dictated by the bylaws. You will send 2 notifications, one for the general membership meeting, where the agenda will have elections on there, and then you have your election notice, the specific things that you must have listed on the election notice, just like your general membership meeting notice, the meeting format, the date and time, positions listed, and when nominations are closed on that election notice. I'm going to hold questions to the end. I just want to go through this real quick. Let me see if I put some, animation here. So things to have ready for your spring elections, right? So if you're holding it virtually, if you have a virtual elections, the unique identification codes is equivalent to your parent coordinator or the school designee, assistant principal, the principal looking through the roster to verify you're a guardian, a parent, caregiver of a child in the schools. They're checking so unique identification codes to maintain anonymity, right? That's the purpose of it. So the ballots are, people when they vote are anonymous, and we'll go more into that. That needs to be prepared prior to. The nominating committee is made up of parents, right, who are not running for a position on the executive board. And they will decide among themselves who's going to be the election chair, who's going to be the note taker, who's going to be the timekeeper. They're going to prepare the self-nomination form to distribute it and close prior to nominating meeting. They will be the ones hanging posters of election notice. And this is more for PAPTAs, right? Positions that will be filled, minimum mandatory position for spring elections. And if nominations are closed, a poster of, if nominations are closed before the election meeting, they will post candidates who are running on each position. The committee must confirm candidates can run before putting their names on the ballot. And who they're going to go to the parent coordinator or the school designee, who will be at the elections to verify elections or eligible voters. That's their only role. They're not chairing elections. They're not holding the elections. Everything to do with elections completely is parents, no teachers, no principals, etc. The ballots, if it's a Google, if you use a Google form, I like the Google form, and I'm going to tell you why. But if you go to, you could use the polling feature on the virtual platform of choice. You could use an application source like Pearl Everywhere or Survey Monkey. So before I go, I would tell you why I like the Google form. If you are using Zoom, and this is on election guidance, right? If are you using Zoom, everyone who is an eligible voter must be renamed to that unique identification code. Anyone who is not allowed to vote are placed in the breakout room. If you're an eligible voter and you're hosting, like the PTA president is hosting the platform or the election chair, you will relinquish either to your parent coordinating school day temporarily, because when the ballots come out, only those who's hosting and those are co-hosting will not receive a ballot. So keep that in mind. So I like the Google form. I create the Google the ballot, and the first thing on there is to input your unique verification code. It makes it very simple. You don't have to worry about putting people in the breakout room, etc. So if you're having in-person elections, your ballots are pre-printed after that nomination meeting is happening. So here we go. And again, I'm saying this is a fresh refresher. So there we go. I'm just going to put all the points in here so I don't forget. There we go. So the PTA president is going to open up the general membership meeting. And when it comes time to nominations, it's going to pass it over to the nominating committee. This is the nominating meeting, which happens a month before your elections, right? And again, this applies to PAPTAs. So this is the information you will share with them if they have questions. You're going to explain the nominating committee. So going to introduce themselves. Whoever's going to be, who's the chair of the nominating committee, will explain the process, the nomination process, and expectations. Starting the nominating process, you're going to read the roles and responsibility of the position. You're going to read the names of the parents who pre-nominated themselves. You're going to open the nomination floor for the position for additional candidates who would like to nominate themselves at the nominating meeting. Remember, this is timed. Once it's timed is up, you're going to close the nomination floor. You're going to add anyone who decides to nominate themselves at the nomination meeting will be on the ballot. If someone nominates someone else for a position, that person must be present to accept the nomination. So I'm going to say that again. That person must be, they have to accept, and they must be there to accept the nominations to be on the ballot for the next month for elections. So once you close that, you're going to repeat it for all positions. And, you know, at least a minimum, it's the mandatory positions, right? That must be filled by the last day of school. To this year's last day of school is June 26th. That's correct, right, Brandy?
Yes, the 26th.
All right, so let me just fill some of this in. So you could, whatever, take the picture. I think there's no more. There we go. So that was the nominating meeting. Now it's the next month, it's the election meeting process, right? Again, the PTA president is going to open the floor, or open the meeting, you know, do whatever they need before elections, review the minutes, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes time to do elections, they're going to pass it over to the election chair. And that time, the election chair is going to introduce the election committee. You know, election committee at this time, explain the election process and the expectations, and everything is very similar, except that after you read the roles and responsibilities, you're going to read the parents who pre-nominated themselves, right? Now, you're only going to open the floor if nominations are still open. Most of us, the nominations are closed at this time. This is the difference between expedited elections, and I'm going to talk about that, and then regular elections. That's the whole purpose of nominating, because it makes the process of voting on elections quicker, right? Because most of the time it's part of our general membership meeting. So if it happens to have open still, then you're going to open the floor for a nominated time and get any more candidates, right? If you happen to have vacancies, you might want to, for any positions, because nobody nominated themselves, you may want to open that up during elections, because there's no one vacant, it's vacant, but that's a choice as per PAPTAs when it could do, because they could have the elections, expedited elections for those vacancies. If your nominations is closed, like most of us have it, you're going to straight go into candidate statements, whether they're contested or not. Give them the opportunity to speak. Because they're uncontested doesn't mean they automatically get the position. I'm going to say that again. Just because they're uncontested doesn't mean they automatically get the position. So you're going to read let them allow to speak. You're going to repeat for each position. Now, commencing voting. I like to put one ballot. Some people have each position, they do what they need to do, and then they vote, right? And they repeat that. It's up to the PAPTA, and it's up to President's Council when they do their elections. Now I'm going to talk about that a little later. So when commence voting, if it's contested, you're going to share the ballot, right? You're going to put it in a link. You're going to drop your poll, use the platform poll, whatever way you're using, and you're going to vote. If it's uncontested, you're still voting. You're going to ask a parent who's not running to make a motion to vote those individuals in, right? You can do it by per position. You can do it by block, but you're going to ask someone to make a motion. Someone has to second it. And you have to ask all in favor of that motion. So it can be documented. Say yes, put it in the chat, raise function verbally, but you must go through that process. You also must go, anyone who opposes the motion, you must give them the opportunity to say no. Again, give people opportunity to abstain. And if the no's happen to have it, they are not voted in. If the yes have it, they are voted in. That is very important, because it's very rare occurrence, but I have seen membership saying no to uncontested. So that it is very important that you make sure that process is done when it's uncontested. Then the election chair, like at the nominating meeting, will turn it back to the president. Okay. Where we at now? There's still more stuff. Okay. Here, certifying the election. This is a parent documentation. This documentation belongs to President's Council. This documentation belongs to the associations. The election chair or someone from the parent nominating committee will fill the election certification done. And as per A60, it should be done right after the meeting is done. That's when it's supposed to be done. The regs allow it to up to 5 days to certify the elections, right? Technically after 5 days, if it's not signed, it's not certified. They are strongly encouraged that it's done right away. So the principal, if they see missing information, they can't fill it in. They'll sign it. They'll give the original to the association, President's Council. They will make a copy for the certification form to go to the parent coordinator or school designee, so they can input it in the school parent leadership contact information system, acronym SPLCI, right? And then the parent coordinator and the school designee will forward a copy to the family leadership, to their family leadership coordinator, so they can also have it on file. And you know why that is important? Because it lets the superintendents and it let President's Council know who their members are, right? Their responsibility is to give the information to President's Council so they know who their membership is, so they will handle that. So now, President's Councils have expedited elections, right? Versus the PA regular spring elections. Their elections are expedited. And I'm going to go what that means on the next slide. That means when you have expedited elections, and sometimes in the spring, this may happen because there was no nominating committee was able to be formed because they started too late or nobody wanted to volunteer. So you're going to have your elections, but it will be expedited. But that means there's no pre-nominations. That means no pre-filled ballots, right? All nominations are taken right from the floor. But for expedited elections, you still need someone to chair the meeting, and has to be a parent, right? Same thing with President's Council. It needs to be a parent with the exception, or there's exceptions, and a parent from that membership, right? It's not outside parents, parents from that membership. So if it so happens you can't get an election chair for your thing, then you're going to ask President's Council. I'm going to do it with associations first, and your FLC, and you really need to give them 2 weeks notice, right? Because they have their own elections, they have the districts, so you can't say, yes, the day before, we need you to do elections. No, you need to give them advance notice on there, because again, and we're going to go on that slide, or one of the slides, 2 things to remember: you should have let your superintendent know or your principal know by April 1st, when is your election date? So you know when your elections are happening. So when you have expedited elections, so you're going to need that election chair prior to. And as I said, the only ones outside of membership is President's Council or the FLC, and or FLC can support the elections. But there is still going to be a need for a note taker and a timekeeper at the time of elections. And you can ask again, membership, please, if you're not running, a way to help and support, someone be the note taker and a timekeeper. They gotta be individuals who are not running. And when I talked about the candidate statement, one important key, because it can be grieved, make sure everyone is allotted the same amount of time. If you say 2 minutes, everyone maximum time is 2 minutes. You can't give someone else 3 minutes. That is a justification for grievance, and it's gonna end up leading into Anthony's piece. But I want people to remember, things to remember. PAPTAs are autonomous. President's Councils are autonomous. No school staff, that's including the teachers, even if it's a PTA, can preside over meetings and chair elections. It's strictly only parents, caregivers. No school, that goes same thing with the exception of with the FLC for President's Council. No one wants to do the elections, right? And again, I think that's part of the reasons why sometimes some of us are not doing it in June, but start preparing now, or start preparing in September. Who's going to do your elections, right? So to make sure is done in June, because once it's not done in June, like we said before, Anthony said before, is out of your hand, and the FLC will do it in September, and that's when they so choose to, right? So let's make sure we keep it within our control. The second thing, again, the PAPTA meeting notices, including the election notices. And one of the key things I would like to you put the date, right, that the notice is going out. So that will easily help. You can see when the notice went out. The notice, when you're sending out that notice, put a date on there, just in case there's some grievances complaints, you can see like, oh no, the meeting notice was sent out 15 days prior to. That goes both for meeting and election notice. And again, your meeting dates and your election date are dictated by your bylaws, and the format is also dictated by your bylaws. Like I mentioned earlier, April 1st, we should be letting our principals know when and how the elections will be held. Again, that goes both for President's Council and the associations. Their job is not to memorize our bylaws, so we must let them know ahead of time so they can be prepared to make sure someone will be present, someone to certify the elections, someone to verify the eligible voters. And then lastly, again, no hybrid for elections. It's either in person or virtual remote platform. And again, your bylaws will dictate if you can have elections virtually. And again, all these decisions are driven by your membership, not the board. Your membership is driving the decisions, how elections should be held and stated in your bylaws. And again, we are here to support each other. It's that time of year. Happy spring elections. I think I'm done. And it's time for Q&A right now. I am stopped sharing. I hope that I was real brief. Let's see what the time is. Okay, so yeah. So I see District 16, you have a question?
Sorry, I was just wondering if, do you have that piece on the PT election in a document PDF form?
Are you asking me if I'm sharing my slides?
Yeah. Well, that slide. But yeah, I think
well, this meeting is going to be recorded, and it's going to be because it's not live stream. We will upload it this time, even though we did this already 2 months ago, and I think we refreshed again last month. But I had my parting gift to High Queens High Schools. I said I was sharing the slides. All right. I see your face, Rashida. We'll talk later. But I did see a question in the chat about teachers. So I want to be very specific because the question came out up on Tuesday. So teachers are allowed to vote. Matter of fact, they're allowed to nominate people. They just cannot run, right? And they cannot chair the meetings. So they're allowed to vote. So when you come to the SLT, so everything applies, same thing where when you come to SLT elections, right? This is where the difference comes. After you do your association elections, right? Then you do it, then you're gonna hold the school leadership team elections. And why we do that? Because the president is a core member of the school leadership team. So they're already going to take a seat. So you need to, so whoever's the president has a seat, and those else, if it was contested, can also be eligible to run for the school leadership team. That's why that is the importance of order. And also I need to mention, if you're holding your school leadership team elections the same night, which most of us do, you must add that to the election notice. You cannot hold SLT elections if you don't add it in the notice. It should be also part of your nominating committee. After you hold your nomination portion, you hold for school leadership team. Is it that year, because it's every 2 years for elections, or you need to fill vacancies, right? That should be part of their elections. No, you cannot say there's no expedited elections before June 26th. There should not be any expedited elections for associations. President's Council's elections are expedited. I mean, if they so choose, want to do a whole nomination thing, but again, those who are running already know they're the president of their PAPTAs, right? So president's councils are holding expedited elections. PAPTAs should not, they should be holding regular elections, but sometimes, again, let's be realistic. You might not be able to get so a nominating committee. If you started too late, I'm going to say what's too late. If your elections is May and there's no nominating committee, it has to be expedited elections at this point, right? Your bylaws dictate that you are supposed to have it in May, and there's no nominating committee. Your election is going to be expedited. And I'm going to go back to SLT. Teachers cannot vote in the SLT portion. They could for PAPTAs, yes. Teachers, staff have their own elections, who sits on the school leadership team. So now that's, here you go. So teachers also are supposed to have their unique verification form. Recommended practice is to put a T in front of it. So when there's SLT, and if you're using the polling feature, they'll have to go into the waiting room, right? Because they do not vote for school leadership team seats. They have their own elections, right? Melissa.
Hi, Shirley. Thank you so much for the tutorial and the slides. And I was just curious if either you or the DOE could kind of put together a small, like a 5-minute presentation on this, because I know it's our jobs to relay election information to our districts and then the districts to the schools, but it's so many people and sometimes it gets lost in translation. I feel like a lot of people are duplicating work. And I sort of feel like the presentation that you gave would be great to just be able to say, hey, nominating committees, take a look at this quick video, so that you really know what you're doing from the horse's mouth, as opposed to telephone, and, you know, PTA president turnover, et cetera. I feel like our nominating committees, at least at my school, it's new folks every time, and they don't always know, and everyone does it great and they get it right, but it would be great just to have kind of like a definitive source to go to be able to spread out to give to all the schools. And it could be something quick. I know it doesn't take quick time to produce it, but it would be a great, so that it's you know, the norm across all the schools and people are getting it right. So that's just my comment. Thank you.
I will go. Thank you. Great. The largest answer: New York City Public Schools have it on the website, especially pre-COVID, right? When it was new, the virtual. There's actually videos right there. There are slides. There's election scripts, etc. Now I'm going to go down to the next level, right? FLCs are there to support the schools, right? And president's councils. They're supposed to be doing PDs, right? Just like president's councils are supposed to do PDs. I said always partner up with them, right? We also encourage our members to encourage, because, you know, on president's council is the president. If we're doing PDs, have your board come on. Have parents who are not running to come on. Anyone who feels like they're going to be a future leader to join, right? We also encourage parent coordinators. So in some parent coordinators are actually doing workshops, right? That could be one of the workshops that they do. Like you have the FLCs to support them, or the family support coordinator. If you don't have FLC at the time, they're there to support at the local level. And you also have President's Council. So those videos and scripts and slides are all existing already on New York City Public Schools. And I said, so I'll be nice, you know, I will extend beyond Queens High Schools. I will share these slides. I already put it in PDF. I already shared it with the FLCs to share it with their schools in the district, right? I will still be here until October, right? For the end of the board, but we could talk more about that. Let's go into Anthony, his segment, and then any more questions, we'll talk or we'll answer all questions at the end. So Anthony, Mr. Settle, you have, wait, hold on a second. Let me.
Hello, everyone.
Yeah, give me a second. I know you're going to share your slides, but okay, I did that. All right, settles not so
Okay.
secret gems. Overview
Right.
of complaints, grievances, and investigations.
So I actually do have a whole presentation for you today, but you all know how technologically challenged I am. I'm at that age. So give me a second here. I gotta try to figure this part out.
Yeah, hit the green button, share screen.
Ah, see, I always need somebody to talk me through it.
No, it's
Because I am terrible at this.
Is your slides open before you do that?
Yeah,
They
are open. I just
okay, great.
select
So
the screen. I'll hit
Mhm.
share, right?
There you go. See?
Can you see that? Can everyone see that? So we're just gonna so you don't see
Yes.
all the crazy nonsense. So there, we're good. We're good. Everyone sees this?
We're awesome. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I wanted to just kind of have a very quick little thing with you all today on complaints, grievances, and investigations. This is so appropriate following Shirley's marvelous presentation on a review of elections, right? Because most of the time that we get these complaints or grievances or investigations, they happen following a PA or PTA election. So I just wanted to explain a little bit about this process that we engage in, and hopefully we all can help to avoid some of these things that come through. So with that said, I'm just going to, wait a minute, here we go. Did that advance? No, there we go. So just a quick agenda, complaints versus grievances. What is the complaint process, complaint escalation pathways, the importance of addressing complaints? What is the grievance process? What is a grievance escalation pathway? And then finally, in terms of investigations, what is a financial audit and the types of audits? And I will talk very, very briefly about larger investigations, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on that, but I do think it's important that it's mentioned. So a complaint versus a grievance. So let me just give a little bit of background. So in 2017, when we revised the regulation in 2017, we reserved the grievance for elections only. And so everything else that would be titled a grievance is really a complaint at this point. So any perceived infraction of your PA or PTA or President's Council bylaws or Regulation A660 is a complaint, is a complaint. So any perceived infraction of the bylaws or regulations outside of an election is a complaint. All complaints must be submitted in writing, and they should never, ever, ever be anonymous, right? So what is it? It's a perceived infraction of bylaws and regulations. It should be submitted in writing, and it should never be anonymous. Why do we put these parameters on these things? Well, one, if there is something to be complained about, it should be specific. And so it should be something that is an infraction of the bylaws or the regulation. You want to know who, you want to have it in writing so that it's not amorphous, so that you can actually see it clearly. And then you can find it whether in the bylaw or regulation or whether or not it is an infraction of those two documents. And it should not be anonymous, right? It shouldn't be anonymous because it could be done for just frivolous reasons. And we want this process to be a very serious process. If it has to be anonymous, then we can make allowances for it. But it should not be anonymous. So what is a grievance? Grievances are reserved for an election complaint. So some infraction of the election process as housed in CRA 660 or in your bylaws, right? And the allegation, it should be an allegation of improper election details. It's not because your side lost and the other side won. And I was around in the days when the Sour Grape Club was alive, well, and kicking. And so I lost the election. So therefore, something must have gone wrong because I should not have lost. And very often, I upheld an enormous number of elections because it wasn't specific. So it needs to be a specific violation of A660 or your bylaws. So it should not be something where, well, the ballots were red and they should have been blue. No, that's not a specific violation, right? It needs to be a specific violation from the regulation. So candidate A was given 3 minutes to speak and candidate B was given 30 seconds to speak, and they were cut off by the chair. That's a specific violation. So that would be a grievable offense. And that grievable offense should be, not only should it be specific, but it must be in writing. So it can't be one of these things where you run into someone down, a week later and you say, hey, by the way, I think this went wrong. No, it's got to be in writing, right? And there's a time frame. So it's got to be within a certain period of time, 5 days following the election, you have to file the grievance. So you get 5 days. And the response should come back to you once it's received by the FLC or the superintendent's office, should be within 10 days, right? So we have time limits on it so that it doesn't linger and linger and linger. And grievances cannot be anonymous. So an election grievance cannot be anonymous. If you're going to grieve the election, it has to be specific, it has to be in writing, you have 5 days to submit it, and you have to attach your name to it. So that's the differences between a grievance and a complaint. So let's look at what is the complaint process related to PA, PTAs, and SLTs. So one, you have to submit the complaint. The complaint is then investigated or looked into. Then the complaint is addressed in writing, and the complaint is resolved. And if the complaint is not resolved, that's when it should be escalated. It shouldn't jump over hoops to the final piece until it's gone through this process. And so for complaints, if it's a complaint that's about something that happened at a PA or PTA meeting, it should be addressed to the executive board. And they should then follow this process, and they should work to resolve or address and or resolve that issue. If it's not resolved, then it should be moved up higher to the next in line, which we would probably say is either A, going to be President's Council or the Superintendent's Office, right? And there's some complaints we would not necessarily want a parent to investigate another parent. So that would be something that would go to the Superintendent's Office. And then if there's no resolve there, then it should be kicked up higher than that. So that would be the process. What is the pathway? So complaint escalation pathway, and this could be even a general complaint in a school, right? So parent coordinator, President's Council, or DLT if it's an SLT complaint, FLC, FSC, and or the district office. And then finally, it would be FACE, this office, someone here with it. But it should go through all of these steps first. Why is this important? Escalation handling is to provide a clear path for anyone to express their concerns for proper procedures for parent leader structures. So there should be a way to address this. It's a clear path. So it shouldn't be murky. You should know where you're going. You should know what's being done and how it will be addressed. We want to create consistency. So an opportunity to provide clear outcomes based on similar infractions over time, regulations, rules, policies, laws. So we want to create this consistency of practice. Transparency, so it's transparent to provide a clear and effective system of time-bound resolution to the conflict, right? So that's what transparency is. And then accountability. So assures members of a fair treatment when addressing concerns, disputes, and conflicts. It also assures that the organization will move in the right direction towards self-improvement. So this is why this is so important. And it's always good if a concern is brought to our attention or brought to a PA's attention, they should address it. Don't sit on it or dismiss it. Address it, because it could be something that will help to improve the functionality of that association or even SLT. So what is a grievance? So as I mentioned before, the grievance process is, first of all, it has to be placed in writing. So you got to write it out. Must have a name of the complainant and a way to contact the complainant, right? Phone number, email, address, whatever it is that you want to be contacted, but name has to be in writing. You have to put your name on it and a way to contact you if you're filing the grievance. It must be submitted no later than 5 days after the election, and it must allege a specific and material violation of CR 8660 and or the bylaw. So what do I mean by specific and material violation? So let me put it this way. Two people are running for the office of president. There are one person wins by 8 votes, and one of those 8 votes seemingly may have been somebody who was not supposed to vote. We take out that one vote. That's a specific violation. We take out that one vote. It does not impact the outcome of that election. So that's why we say it has to have a material outcome on the election itself. 2 people are up for a position on the PA or PTA. Person A wins by 1 vote. One person who cast a vote probably should not have. And so we take out that 1 vote. Now we're at a tie. There is a material impact on that election. So in that situation, in those 2 situations, we would probably, the results would probably be very different from each other. One, we would say the impact was very direct, and the other, we would say there was no impact. The person still won by X number of votes. So the grievance escalation pathway, and I know a lot of this is repetitive, but sometimes being repetitive helps to etch it in the back of our minds. So file a grievance within 5 days of the election. The election grievance decision must be rendered within 10 days from receipt of that grievance by the district office. An appeal of that election grievance decision is made within 5 days of receiving the correspondence from the district office. And then the response to the appeal will be rendered within 5 days by face. So grievance is filed. It's filed within 5 days following the election so that it doesn't linger, so that the PA or PTA is not in this limbo state for months at a time trying to figure out whether or not their election is going to be upheld or overturned. The election response is given within 10 days of receipt. You have 5 days to appeal if you don't agree with the decision. And then the response to that appeal is sent to our office, and we respond within 5 days of receiving it. And so that's the grievance pathway. So, and we can take some questions after. Let me just cover this part and speak a little bit about other investigations. So one of the investigations that commonly we get asked about is, what is an audit? So the PA or PTA has been asked to do an audit, or a parent is asked for an audit. So an audit is an official financial examination. It's an investigation or review of the association's or president's council's bank accounts and its financial practices. So an initial audit may be conducted by a committee of the association or president's council, or an audit must be given access to all financial records associated with the bank account. So you can an audit can be done by request, or you can build an audit into your structure, your financial structure, or housed in your bylaws that say every year the treasurer and the financial committee, or the treasurer and the audit committee, will conduct an audit of its finances. And what you're really doing is making sure that your bank accounts are going to reconcile, that everything is going to even out at the end of the day. And so if it doesn't even out, then you're looking at, well, where did it not even out? And what went wrong, or what was not accounted for, or where did we miss this? Or maybe we just were too ambitious and we didn't make the money we thought we were going to make. So that's what an audit is. Don't be afraid of it. So we talk about 2 types of audits. The first is an internal audit by the PA PTA executive board and or audit committee, if you have an audit committee, or your financial committee, if you have one. The other is an external audit, which would either be done, you're asking President's Council to come in and review your books, or there has been some accusation of financial misappropriation of funds or malfeasance. And so the Special Commissioner of Investigations, SCI, or the Office of Special Investigations, OSI, may come in and do an audit, or may require that an audit be done as part of their investigation. Excuse me. So those are the two types of audit. So let me just speak on these last two pieces in terms of SCI and OSI and financial malfeasance and financial misappropriation of funds. It's very serious situations in those cases. We get at least 5 or 6 of them a year. I think that's 5 or 6 way too many. I want to be very clear in speaking to all of you about this. A, the funds that you raise do not belong to any one president, do not belong to any one treasurer or recording secretary or an executive board. The funds that you raise belong to the PA or PTA, depending on who and what you are. That also goes for the bank accounts. And many of you have heard me say this for years, and I will continue to say it. The bank account does not belong to any one person. Your name may be on the bank account because you are its caretaker while you are the officer in charge. When you are no longer the officer in charge, you and the incoming executive board should go to the bank and make those changes. Don't close the bank account because it could trigger an external audit. It could be seen as some form of financial malfeasance or financial misappropriation. If you bank at the same bank that you have the PA or PTA account when it happens, be very, very clear with the bank. Do not tie these two bank accounts together. Because A, this bank account over here, I don't own, while I own my personal bank account. So SCI and OSI are only really brought in when there are these accusations or allegations of financial malfeasance and financial misappropriation of funds. They can also be called in when you're not following your bylaws or you're not following A660 in an appropriate way, and so they will also investigate that as well. But more often than not, they're going to step in because there is some form of financial malfeasance. In some situations, I have advised people that they should also reach out to their local precincts. Again, these funds that you're raising are not your personal funds. They're not your personal loan company, right? You're not borrowing money against your PA or PTA and you'll pay it back because very often we find people don't pay it back. So be very, very deliberate. Be very, very intentional in dealing with the funds that you raise for a PA or PTA. Also, the other reasons an SCI and OSI can be brought in is if you're raising funds without a bank account. So don't do those. So, and those are external investigations. Those are external audits, and they will come in and we actually have had people who, when at the end of the day, all this has been turned over to a local prosecutor and they have been prosecuted. So please be very, very careful with the monies that you raise to avoid any kind of an investigation, if at all possible. And so with that, I want to say thank you, but I'll go back and we can also do a few quick Q&As if we have time. But I will stop sharing this.
Thank you. We do have time. This is
okay.
Part of the reason why we have it towards the end.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So nobody else is waiting to speak. So here you go, have at it, whether it's about what Anthony presented or the refresher. I did put the slides in the chat. So share it.
Do you still see my screen or not?
Yeah, you want me to stop sharing? Just hit there's a red button on top that says stop sharing.
Ah, gotcha. Stop sharing. Boom.
There you go.
There we go.
Boom. Yep. And soon you'll
Sorry,
be
guys. I'm not this technology is too fast for me. So are there any questions?
I saw a smiley face. Really? No more questions?
No questions? Was that
Oh,
clear?
here we go. Nope, no. There's questions in the chat. How are sponsorship received in an annual report?
you should have a section in your annual reports as either in-kind giving or donations, or however those funds are received, or however that those gifts are received. You should be able to account for that with a certain, for lack of a better term, dollar amount. Because you do want to account for that, because an in-kind donation can be just as important as a monetary donation. But you should just create a line, a topic line that says in-kind or donations, or if you are 501c3 grant, like you got a grant, like you got like a grant from your local city council person or a state legislator. You want to account for that. Thank you, Rashida. You're most kind, but I'm a realist. I'm a realist. So, but you are very, very kind. Thank you very, very much. Rashida said, if I keep saying that I'm not tech savvy, I'll never be tech savvy. You're right. But, you know, I am what I am. It's just an acknowledgement of I am what I am. I mean, I can do it with a bit of tutoring, thanks to Shirley's help, but, you know, leave me to my own devices, girl, I'm going to be lost in the woods.
Practice makes perfect. You know that. And we still sometimes, you know, sometimes technical difficulties prohibits us as well. So sometimes it's not our fault. Yeah.
And the technology is just moving so fast.
Mm-hmm.
Like I maybe before the end of my days, I will be communicating telepathically. Which would definitely get me into trouble. Any other questions? Come on, guys.
Oh, here we go. If you existed as a PTA but had no access to the bank account, what do your report in annual report or interim report?
So I'm going to say this: if you don't have a bank account, let's start there, right? If you don't have a bank account and you did no fundraising, right, whatsoever, I'm still going to say you file an annual report, primarily because A660 requires it. And what you put in that report is simply did not fundraise, no bank account, right? We have no dollars, but you still should file one so that there is a number of things. There's a history. So the financial report, the interim and the annual financial report tells a story of the financial health of your association. So even if you're not fundraising, you want to be able to tell that story. And that story is simple: we did not fundraise. Boom, you're good. You filed it, you gave it to the principal, they put it in SPLCI, you have nothing to worry about. If you think that because and I know you guys don't do this, right? These are some PAs or PTAs in your districts may or may not do this. And it's maybe one or two. But if you don't have a bank account, you should not be fundraising. If you do have a bank account, you have an obligation to your members to let them know what the financial health of the association is. Again, it's not your personal money. It's not the personal money of the executive board. The executive board is not the PA or PTA, but all the parents of the school or the parents and teachers of the school make up the association, and they have a right to know. You have an obligation to share that information with them. So it's important that your financial records are accurate. And it's also these reports help you to do that. Right, the interim report is going to let you know the number of things. One, are we on track in our fundraising goals, or do we have to make some changes and adjustments? B, are we failing in this regard? Like we're not even getting close to it, or we're exceeding it, right? Or we need to be able to put this out there so that people see what we've done with the money that they have given to us. So just as you would say to any charitable organization that you might be making a personal donation to, you want to make sure that the money that is given is going to the things that they said they were going to give it to and do what they said they were going to do with it. you have the same obligation as the executors or executive board of your PAs or PTAs. It's to give this financial accounting. So it's going to give that history, tell that story, and show the accountability, and it's transparent. Those what those reports are for. If you're not doing that, then you're not really fulfilling the obligation of the seats that you said that you were willing to take. So that's why it's so important, and that's why it's so powerful. It's going to help you and help your association in the long run. So yes, even if you don't have a bank account, you still should be doing the annual reports. You still should be doing the interim reports.
Okay, so Adriana, transfer of records is next month. That is not on this month's agenda. I don't see any questions, so I am going to share my slides for the last time, but I'm going to add. Okay,
Shirley, can I also add this? Can I add one thing, and then it's going to harken back to your presentation? It's a question that we get quite frequently from schools with PTAs, right? PTAs. And that is, when should we hold our election, right? Because the teachers want to vote. Okay, I'm going to sound maybe cruel, maybe I'm going to sound mean, right? But your election should be at the convenience of your parent population. If the teachers want to participate, then they need to stick around for the meeting to start. That does not mean that you don't have to make allowances, but if you are making those allowances, also means that you have to provide the necessary folks to monitor that election process. So we've had schools that do elections all day so that teachers can come and vote. Great, but that means somebody on that nominating committee has to sit with that election box. That box can't move from where it is to some other place for the meeting. So there's a whole host of logistical issues. To me, they're all solved by saying, this is at the convenience of our parent members. And if our meetings is at 7:30 at night, our election is going to be at 7:30 at night. You're more than welcome to participate in the election process at 7:30 in the evening. They're at the convenience of your parents. I get that question from principals, but my teachers can't vote. They all go, well, I'm sorry, but it's at the convenience of parents. And I don't really say sorry apologetically. I'll be very honest, right? But I'd say because I'm being polite. I'm sorry, but it's at the convenience of parents. Your elections are at the convenience of your parent members, not at the convenience of your teachers. Some teachers won't like me for that, but that's the truth of the matter. And that's what we communicate to schools whenever we get that question. So I'm letting you know this is what we say here. I'm sorry, Shirley, I didn't mean to take over your time.
No, it's true, because it's the same with SLT.
Yep,
with
same with
general meeting, because the association is the parent voice. UFT got their UFT union. They got their union as their primary voice.
And guaranteed, UFT and DC 37 are not letting parents in on their election processes. So you have a PTA, teachers have the right to participate in the election. They can't run, but they have a right to vote. But that election meeting is at the convenience of parents, not the convenience of teachers.
Right, awesome. So I'm gonna go through my slides. I'm gonna ask when I stop the recording to just stay, because I just want to make an announcement. I just because since we were unable to live stream, well, and nothing crazy was said, so so I won't have to edit once I get the recording, right? So it could go uploaded as soon as possible, as soon as I get the recording. So just stay on after I stop the recording, because it's just for us what I have to say afterwards. And I did a lot of talking, which I don't like doing. But Randy, do you have anything to add in any of the pieces that was discussed just now?
That was definitely thoroughly covered.
Okay, and I just want to keep in mind, it's a refresher. Those slides is not a PD. PD is minimum 2 hours. right? If we're gonna be realistic, it's 2 hours. Usually we spend on nominations and elections. So that is a quick refresher or summary of things that should happen. So I'm going to share my slides so we can move it along. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for still being here, those who are still here. So our next meeting is scheduled for May 9th, virtually. For those who celebrated this yesterday, happy Eid al-Fitr, right? For those who are going to celebrate Passover, happy Passover. And then we have spring break. So, thank you for joining. Happy days. I hope you're doing fun. I hope you're not like me and we doing, non-fun stuff. But yes, happy ELA testing. That is happening this month as well. On that note, can someone bring the meeting to adjournment and remember, stay on. Thanks.
Motion to adjourn today's meeting.
Okay, thank you, District 31. Can we get okay, I see. Let me see anybody else who would like to second it besides you, Rashida, okay? Thank you, District 4. The meeting is adjourned. 12:39 is our end time. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording and I'm going to make my, where is it? Why? There it goes up top. It's up here today. They did an update.